Ah, I didn't hear it say anything. Okay, but it's recording. Usually it says Zoom is recording. Hi, everybody, and welcome. Make sure, yeah, my monitor's up. Sorry, that was a strange start. Welcome. It is May 17th, 2023. If I seem breathless, it's because I just came in from walking my dog in the park. So that way she got lots of good outside exercise before we begin. And today is level 1, lesson 19. So last week, we actually reached the culmination of everything that I teach about. And then this week and the next week are going to be tying up, culminating, finishing up the semester, and then preparing for next semester. So this week is not the last week, not the last class, but next week is our last class. This teaching is called Flying Rainbow Lasagna and Non-Duality. And again, every time I go back into my recordings from 2013, 2014, I'm incredibly impressed by what I was, writing about or speaking about then, and how much it relates to what we are going through right now, both in terms of personal and planetary stuff. Pedro is saying life is becoming hot there in the desert. Same thing here too, in case you can't tell from my sweaty complexion and other things. And I've got the fan on over here, and I've got the window closed too. Yeah, it's getting pretty warm out around here too. But yeah, we try to usually exercise earlier in the day and not late in the day. But in order for Cheeky to be patient when we do class, I always make sure to get her a good walk before we get started. So this sharing, teaching about Flying Rainbow Lasagna and non-duality absolutely relates to what we are presently experiencing, both individually and as a collective, in terms of planetary ascension. So this is, I'll just begin with my notes. Humanity as a blending of several different genetic influences of various different star cultures. And I put cultures in air quotes there because you know that culture, you have a sense of like, my pinkies are up. I'm, wearing my monocle or something like that. I'm wearing jewels and pearls. But instead, it is really just a sense of somewhat organized consciousnesses, because like I come from a galactic star culture where we are definitely civilized, but not all of these organizations are civilized. So calling them cultures could be like calling it like a culture of bacteria. Just want to make that clear. And in this teaching, like I really am, when I listened to it, I really related to the purity of the moment when I recorded it. It can be very, very difficult sometimes to hear these truthfulnesses amidst the turmoil of what we've been going through. This sense of feeling very embattled. And even though I'm talking about things that are non-dual. Wait, I put my lasagna on the ground because I was doing a video over here. Sorry. This is my one time per class that I jumped up once per class. Okay, good. Did it. I'm talking about in this recording from 10 years ago, ideals of the Flying Rainbow Lasagna, ideals of non-duality. And I recognize if your anger comes up during this class, I'm like, Aurora, like these are my shoulders are down. Like these are very nice ideals, but how does this relate to being, like in a 5G millimeter wave crapola soup and all of the many other injustices that are going on. Hopefully this will contextualize those injustices and give some good direction as to your perception and behavioral response, because that is very big. But I want to acknowledge and recognize that you might be like, this does not feel like, here's the better way for me to be able to say this. I'm teaching this sharing today that is about ideals, recognizing the very, very real challenges of being boots on the ground. And you might feel very under attack, and that can be a challenge, that can be difficult, can feel hopeless, but I don't want you to feel hopeless. So let me go on with this, and I will hopefully make more sense as I'm going on. So inside of each individual human body, your genetic code, as it has been up until this point, has been a mixture of various different star heritages or non-earthly influences. And that it is literally the positive empowerment teaching is that it is your free will choice, which happens at the level of the yellow chakra, the solar plexus. That's where your willpower comes from, and also where your sense of your ego comes from, and the sense of the human installed yet hackable operating system comes from. Your choice about what you would like to emphasize in your genetic structure and what you would like to move towards. If you would like to move towards the higher dimensional love-based circumstances and consciousness collectives, or the lower vibration, which is the stuff that is stuck in the membrane or the meniscus between worlds. It's a distorted level of reality between realities. So in this teaching, first what I'm going to do is talk about duality. Then I'm going to give you Flying Rainbow Lasagne as the resolution to that duality. And what I've essentially framed throughout this whole entire class, and especially through the Galactic History mini class of epic marathon of 5.5 hours last week, is the sense of good versus evil. Good versus evil. And that is also a paradigm that is deeply imprinted into so much of human culture, like human art and music and religion and mythology. And so much is the sense of, it's the subtext of humanity. And it's valid for that to be your subtext because it speaks to all of these questions about your present level of development and the sense of what it takes to reascend the genetic ladder. All right. Yes, so this all derives from your primary trauma that we talked about last week. The original distortion of the human genetic code, you could think of it as happening millennia ago or concurrently still happening in Atlantis. In the Bible, Torah, it is remembered as the fall from Eden or the fall from grace. And it was directly related to the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So if you're not biblically literate or you don't know what I'm talking about, the story of Adam and Eve, and God said, eat anything you want, but don't eat the fruit from this particular tree. And Eve ate and then offered it to Adam and said, eat this fruit. It contained the knowledge of good and evil. And supposedly that was the critical mistake that was made that then plunged humanity into a state of being disconnected from God. That is the mythology of what is here. But of course, I reframe things and contextualize it very differently in the sense of everyone here being innocents, not like you are suffering from the original mistake, original sin that someone else made a long time ago, but that each one of you, each one of us in a human container body, having a pristine genetic code, which I jokingly call factory settings, like when you set your iPhone back to factory settings because it got a bad program on it. You have that as an innate part of you, and you are totally innocent, and it has been a great sense of injustice for you to lose that. So what has happened in terms of the diminishment of human consciousness was a blockade at the level of the crown chakra. So again, it's not a linear journey, but I use allegories of a journey coming from your root chakra, which is at your pelvis and the base of your spine, upward through your torso, upward through your head, and then coming to your crown, which would be your connection to the highest sense of God. And if I turned on my piano, instead of talking about it, actually do it. Everything in life. Here's just a quick truism. Easier to just do it than talk about it or think about it. Just do it. So let me turn on my piano. Here, going up the ladder. Oh, can you hear me? I hope you can actually hear this. I changed the settings, but I'm playing red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Okay, good. That was all I wanted to say. Going up the scale of frequency, just like those notes go up the scale of musical frequency to bring us to a higher octave. So your innocence, you have been artificially blockaded from accessing what I would call higher consciousness or highest consciousness, the source that emanated you, that is also the destination, God, which is pure divinity, God, which is not necessarily the definition as it is represented in anthropocentric holy writings and other literature as being, individual with the face, but God being a presence or an abstraction. humanity was separated from that presence and that abstraction. And that is exemplified as a blockade at the level of the crown chakra. So truthfully, every single one of your cells of your body has an energy center around it with all of the notes of the chakras in there. And literally the nucleus where DNA is in your body, in every single cell, is that note that is the connection to the divine. And that there have been diminishments in your DNA, stopping you from being connected to God. So the crown chakra diminishment is related to OS human, the things that were implanted at the level of yellow, representing, I call it the operating system of what it is to be human. It includes verbalized language and verbalized thought structure, and also the sense of ego as a separation of yourself from the rest of the world. So as we are reascending this genetic ladder, what we are really doing is reconnecting to the entirety of the cosmos and to unity consciousness. That is what Flying Rainbow Lasagna does. That is how this resolves duality. And that is what I'm talking about when I talk about true galactic civilizations. True galactic civilizations are already founded upon or based upon the foundation realization of unity consciousness, which basically states that all of this consciousness is me. All of this stuff is me. But you know that I have ranted against flawed New Age shadow work. Here, it's like grab my structured water-filled wine glass. I have ranted against the facile, simplistic, and flawed misinterpretation of the truism that everything around you is you. Everything around you is you when you are in unity consciousness. It's a profound, exalted state of being. And so that's the frustration that I wanted to speak to even in the beginning of this class, that what I'm sharing here is the truism from that perspective of the most exalted state of your being. Yes, everything is you. And also, when we look at the shape of the Flying Rainbow Lasagna, what you are really comprehending is that this is the source and this is the source, or God is in this direction and God is also in this direction. And that you have this inner compass that occasionally God is going in this direction, occasionally God is going in this direction, but you're constantly following wherever these complex patterns are, so that you are constantly in alignment with God and with pure divinity. And in this shape, the singularity in these different positions has different qualities. The quality of total being and havingness and energy presence, and the quality of non-being and no energy and stillness and complete non-being. And that when you are in unity consciousness, you look at all of this energy, matter, and consciousness that is swirling around on its journey, and being all the vectors being played out upon the stage of physical reality that we inhabit. And you recognize some characteristics, some levels of consciousness are going towards energy. They're getting energized. They are achieving coherence and longevity. They're going to stick around. They're going to still be in existence. And some stuff, people, objects, consciousnesses, and characteristics is going towards entropy, non-being. In your vernacular, that would be kaput. Some of it is going into what is a super dense state in terms of the states of matter that is known as a Bose-Einstein condensate. So I love talking about the states of matter in terms of pure abstraction. I do that in my Path of Light class. If you haven't signed up, sign up for the next teaching cycle of the Path of Light. Like I'll do that in June. Talk about the states of matter. If I were to begin in a graph on this side of your screen, we would begin with a solid, then a liquid, which is slightly less dense than a solid, then a gas over here, then a plasma, which is a superheated gas that also allows for ionization or the carrying of electrical current, and then the organization of plasma, which is light, which is bordering on the threshold between tangible stuff, matter, and non-tangible pure energy. So a plasma ball like the sun in the sky deforms the fabric of space-time and consciousness. It has mass. Sun has mass, a lot of mass, enough mass to have a lot of gravity. It's made entirely of plasma. And plasma is also a candle flame. That means a candle flame has a certain amount of mass to it. It has a certain amount of weight. I don't know how you would measure it, how you would place it on a scale. Do you understand? And yet it is truthful that a plasma such as a candle's flame has a certain amount of mass to it, but a pure beam of light does not have mass. It is pure energy. So then that would be all the way over here to this side of your screen. And what I'm talking about today, Bose-Einstein condensate, that's at the complete opposite end of the spectrum. Off your, not only off the edge of your screen over here from solid, but like imagine my arm is 20 feet long, that far away from solid. It exists at 0 degrees Kelvin, Kelvin being the human science-based language or lexicon for heat. That 0 degrees means there is no heat, no energy, and no molecular movement. So in that state, matter, like atoms, becomes super dense. Even in a solid at room temperature, there's slight movement. So one good example is cathedral glass, which is hundreds or thousands of years old. And that is, a pane. You're like, Aurora, a pane of glass is a solid thing. Yes, it is a solid thing. It is actually, though, a type of liquid that is being held in a stasis of solidity. Hi and welcome, Adam. Good to see you. So that instead of when they first made that pane of glass, the two edges might have been completely parallel, like the thickness would have been completely parallel of the planes. However, over many, many centuries, the molecules slowly migrate downward due to gravity. The top of the glass slightly thinner than the bottom of the glass in like these big, long panes of glass. Again, over the course of hundreds or thousands of years, even something that is a solid, like a piece of glass, has migration of the molecular structure. So solids are, synopsis a la Pedro would be, solids are moving, but just at a very slow rate. Yes, yes, yes. Bose-Einstein condensate, to contrast, is not moving at all. It is not only not moving at a slow rate, it is not moving at all. It is in a state of total frozenness. And in that state of total frozenness, each atom, which is an individualized piece of energy or piece of matter, let's say piece of the physical world, better word, each individualized piece of the physical world becomes super dense and super slow and non-moving. And that also means not moving through time. We have the first 3 dimensions, which are spatial dimensions. The 0th dimension is infinity. The first dimension, second dimension, and third dimension represent the measurement representation of spatial qualities. And the 4th dimension and higher represent time. So what you begin to have is something that is 3rd dimensional, that no longer occupies time, the 4th dimension. It no longer moves through time. Remember in class, as I would draw my different train cars of reality, train car, train car, train car, train car, and then here's you, consciousness. Something is on my screen, and it's definitely not the right time for something to pop up on my screen. Now the spinning beach ball of death is happening. I don't know what to do, guys. I'm scared. Okay, we'll put it off to the side and let it spin. Oh, I know it didn't, it's keeping spinning. Oh, good question, Melissa. I will speak to that. Thank you. You have a great mind. Thank you for being here. Train cars of reality. As you bounce along through each individuated moment of time, moment to moment to moment, like moving through train cars, you are moving through the 4th dimension, and the 5th dimension being the higher dimensional bakery, where or train car construction shipyard, where trains are constructed and where reality is actually constructed out of pure potential. When matter is extremely slowed down and all energy is taken away from it, it becomes a Bose-Einstein condensate. It is extremely dense, denser than physical matter. It's the densest thing that can possibly be imagined, envisioned, or conceived of. And in that level of density and non-movement through time, the main point is that each individuated particle, is a better way of saying it, overlaps. they all start to kind of smear on top of each other and act as if there's only one atom or one particle. And that is its own level of unity consciousness. So the main part of this teaching of Flying Rainbow Lasagna and non-duality is that not all consciousness, stuff, ideas, characteristics, or possibilities in the world are going in the same direction. If you're in unity consciousness, you can paint everything with a giant paintbrush and say, everything is God, everything is the source, everything is me. That is true. However, you must also recognize that not everything has the same destination. So I say all the time, the source is also the destination. In Flying Rainbow Lasagna, the source has different positions. One of those positions is being total energy, infinite energy, getting all of the energy in the whole entire world, every amount of thought, intelligence, possibility, probability, being super smart, super fast, and super hot. And then the complement to that, I didn't say opposite, complement is, or the balance to that is maybe a better way of saying it. No consciousness, no volition, no motivation, no being, no movement through time, non-being. And the challenge in recognizing the truth of that exalted state, and then where the rubber actually meets the road in your life experiences, is that there are all these different star cultures, some of whom contain consciousnesses that are moving or whom are moving to faster rates, evolving and getting faster and faster and faster, closer to God, more intelligent. Ding, ding, ding. You're like, that's me. I'm doing that. You're like, yes, you are doing that. Then there's the stuff that I jokingly call the poop crapola. Stuff that is not supposed to be in existence, stuff that is moving into a state of non-existence. And the journey of that, respecting that journey, allowing that journey, recognizing that it's happening, and how to deal with it behaviorally, that's what all of this is about, the contextual framing of all of this. Because, you know, what we've been experiencing has been something that is very resistant to planetary ascension. Planetary ascension represents the rectification of all that happened in your genetic heritage, that not only changed you as the definition of what it is to be human, but changed all plant and animal life here. Like I've told you many, many stories or sharings about what our existence was like in ancient or concurrent Atlantis, how we ate the music of a plant, but not the actual plant. And we ingested pure light and pure frequency and pure energy. And that when our human self, definition of self, shifted and you became solid fuel users, then everything in the ecosystem shifted. Seasons became a thing. The cycle of birth and death became a thing. Agriculture and creating food that we could then eat became a thing. All of that, you recognize the diminishment and disconnection of your own self state from divinity didn't just affect you, it affected everything on this planet. So your own ascension, which is actually the reclamation of your exalted state, also similarly reflects upon and changes, uplifts and heals, recontextualizes everything that is happening, all plants and animals, all life on this planet, and not just on this planet, but even expanding outward, dilating outward to the galactic level, which is also, like I'll share a little bit throughout this teaching personally, because the Flying Rainbow Lasagna was my own personal song, my own personal song of rectification. However, when you do something like that in the cosmos, it's not just about you. It's not just about your individuation. At the levels of unity consciousness, you recognize all consciousness is connected. So what I am doing with me affects the entire ecosystem. What you do with you, little old you on your planet, in your individuated life, affects all of the plants and animals and mineral life around you. And what you do on this planet as a collective doesn't just affect your little old planet. It affects not only your entire solar system, all of the sun, all of the stars, your entire galaxy, all light everywhere, all consciousness everywhere, because that is what the perspective is when you are at unity consciousness. So right now we are in this very, very challenging time where there is an ongoing rectification event. Always point to this painting over my shoulder. This is the ascension of our planet. And then there are those levels of consciousness or energy or stuck energy, stuff that has not been resolved, unresolved emotional energy, or perturbations of the field might be the best neutral term I could use, that need to go to entropy. They need to go into a restfulness. Like imagine striking a gong and then, and it keeps on reverberating for a very, very long amount of time. And at a certain point, you're like, we don't need these reverberations anymore. You put your hand on the surface of the gong, it stops the reverberations from happening. That is this moment now. But those reverberative residual consciousnesses, stuck energies, or unresolved emotional aspects, it's disrespectful for me to call it poop crapola, but I do that lightheartedly because it's good to be able to be joking about something that can be filled with suffering and very, very challenging and very fearful and difficult to interact with. But to send it to entropy or to bring it to a resolved state is actually the resolution of the entirety of the structure of time, space, and consciousness, and heals the entirety. And that, believe it or not, so these service to self entities, some of them are resistant to that. So I joke about this, and wait, I want to go, my notes are so good. So I did my notes actually this morning. I didn't have it prepared for this teaching. I did my notes in between and before some very positive and good Flying Rainbow Lasagna sessions. And so I've got those to send out to you. But whenever I create these extensive notes, then I'm like, I diverge from my notes and I don't read it. And I wrote it so well. So let me actually go through them because I like the way that they are structured. Ego implantations that came along with genetic degradations of the human realm led to crown chakra reduction of consciousness, crown chakra reduction of connection. And that the solution to this is when you can bend time, space, and consciousness, as I've spoken about in this class very, very often, instead of having to take the linear route from point A to point B, bending and folding point A to point B so that there's no space between them, right? Or you can envision it as a jumping up and over in order to get from point A to point B, bypassing any obstacles that are here. When you can do that using Flying Rainbow Lasagna, which is this higher dimensional bridge, technique and tool, and you can reconnect your crown chakra to the higher dimensional reality, that is when you begin to actually reconnect with what is your origin and your true self, higher self, highest self. And at first it might appear or feel as if you're connecting with something that is alien or something that is other or something that isn't you, something that, let's say, that doesn't look like you, that you don't initially identify with. Part of that is because in being disconnected from at the crown, from the source, that is when the human ego is developed and built. And that actually happens in human infancy with the closing of the baby's fontanelle. So your babies are born, okay, super fast anatomy lesson. Babies are born with floating skull plates that have not yet fused, because when you're going through the birth canal, you're going to get squeezed through there and your whole entire brain and skull gets squeezed, and it is actually highly traumatic to the baby's brain. And then you kind of come and you have to get reshaped and popped out. You kind of have to get your head and skull reformed. And that happens actually in a slow process over many, many months in infant development. And over that process of the skull forming and becoming an adult skull, like the baby, it has to grow to accommodate the size of the brain. And also there is an opening where it is a soft spot on the top of the infant's head. It usually lasts for about a year. It's called the fontanelle, and it represents the openness of the crown chakra of a little tiny human infant, their connection to divine source and oceanic unity consciousness actually remains very, very strong throughout the first year of life. And it's why the first year of life is so incredibly precious to developing consciousnesses, tiny humans, and to the people around them. That if you ever get a chance to hold an infant that is under 1 year of age or babysit for them, it's amazing to be around them. They have wonderful energy. They have wonderful nonverbal insight. Like, they can't speak yet, but they have, oh, pardon me. They have so much going on internally. They have a wonderful thought structure. they're not in control of their orifices yet. It's true. So adults tend to kind of look down on them because they are still pooping in their diapers. But they are actually incredibly wise teachers that bring so much to us in adulthood, because in adulthood, skull plates have fused. You have pretty much had your connection to the divine consciousness severed, and you've also had the implant of the human mind. So pre-verbal infants don't yet have this talking mind. And the talking mind is a large portion of what has separated humanity from divinity. And I always say this all the time, spoiler alert, God is you, spoiler alert. And that is not blasphemy. That is total celebration of your true divine heritage and your true divine origins, and a truthfulness, a very exalted truism. And so what has happened is a fractal microcosm of what is known as the fall from Atlantis, the fall from grace, or the expulsion from Eden. These either mythological, religious, or ancient or concurrent larger events are repeated in fractal microcosm in the life of each adult, each human, I should say, in the developmental process of maturing and becoming an adult. You come here as a little tiny infant, you are very alive and aware and connected to the entirety of consciousness everywhere. And then little by little, that gets diminished, closed off, and you take on the definition of self as basically who you are when you are disconnected from God. And that is your individual self. You say, like, my name is Joe Smith, or my name is Sally Smith, and I live on Main Street, and this is my favorite sweater, and this is my dog. I always say the same examples of like how people define themselves by their name, their external reality structures, their space-time coordinates. And that also relates to humans as a collective, how humans define themselves as a collective or as a species, as it presently is the definition of who and what you are when you are disconnected from God. But that's not the real, truthful totality of who and what you are. That's who and what you are when you've been disconnected from God. So you kind of built this ego structure and cultural structure that is defined erroneously. And as you begin to reconnect with God, AKA the source, AKA divine intelligence, AKA presence pattern, it might at first seem as if you are connecting with something that is otherworldly, or other is just even a good way of saying it, other than you. And you get closer and closer and closer to it, and you're afraid. You're holding on with white knuckles. You're like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then you kind of get to it and you realize it's you. You are kissing yourself in the mirror. That is exactly what you are doing. You are reuniting with your own self state that you had been artificially separated from. That is this level of the journey. Going towards energy, reconnecting with your self state. Aha, the I am God moment. I remember I am God. And that is the opposite balance to this stuff that goes into its infinity stage or unity consciousness state by being essentially having the recognition, like, I don't exist. It does not exist. It does not think a thought. It just goes into non-being state. So these different levels of consciousness are roughly represented in different levels of otherworldly, extraterrestrial, or extra-dimensional consciousnesses. And there's two main camps, even though I say very, very clearly in my notes that there's more than just two ice cream flavors. It's not just chocolate or vanilla in terms of extraterrestrials, not just chocolate or vanilla, service to self or service to others. That are actually a million ice cream flavors of the extraterrestrial or extra-dimensional or non-terrestrial life form variety. But we can roughly divide them up into these two camps. Service to self is my joking tough guy voice. Hey, I'm looking out for number one. I only care about me and I don't care about anybody else, and I do what I want because I do what I want. And, like, F all of you. And I talk about that level of consciousness as being similar to the unicellular organism, a lower state of evolution, and a less empowered state of evolution, both in physical cellular reality, somatic cellular reality, and also in spiritual maturity. Because at a certain point, everyone is going to find a rock that is too heavy to lift on their own, or a task that is too difficult to accomplish on your own. You will need community. And that is what happens when you evolve and you recognize, like here is this rock that's in the middle of the pathway and I can't get around it. I can't do it. I'm trying to lift it up. I'm trying to lift it up. I can't do it. Like, I'm going to have to ask for help. I'm going to have to work with others. Dun, dun, dun. And then you realize that you're actually part of a larger continuum. And then this is also analogous to, in biological evolution, the beginning of multicellular organisms, because what each one of us as a somatic human is a collection of trillions of cells that all work together. They're like, it's a very heavy rock. We're going to have to get trillions of cells to all work together. And look at that. Look at the things that you can accomplish as an individuated human, and look at the things that you can accomplish as a human in community. For example, you didn't just build whatever, a giant bridge or a giant statue, one guy on his own. No. Everybody's got teams, everybody's got groups that work together in order to accomplish anything that is larger than one person's muscle power can build and accomplish. So in order to have any level of complex civilization develop, you're going to have to learn to work together. And then that means you're going to have to mitigate your desires, because if you're only looking out for number one and I do what's good for me, screw you, then no one else is going to want to work with you. And if everybody is such a staunch individualist, then nothing gets done. So at a certain point, you're going to feel like, I want this for me. This is what's good for me. But then also, I want what's good for the group. I want what is good for the collective, so that we trillions of cells working together. Then we also look at human development, family structure, family dynamic. All right, mommy, daddy, baby. Mommy, daddy, baby. That represents small community. Then we look at tribalism, many, many groups of mommy, daddy, baby working together. Then we look at nation states, many, many groups of tribalism. Then we look at larger geopolitical structures. And at a certain point, you have to say, if you want something big to get done, you have to get everybody on board to be able to accomplish your larger goals. That is what next week's class is going to be. Next week's class is about moving into galactic citizenship, or becoming active on the stage or on the level of becoming galactic scale participants beyond just your own personal planet. So again, the very challenging circumstances of planetary ascension here on Earth absolutely relate to your coming out party or your debutante ball becoming part of cosmic infrastructure, because it's not just about your little old planet. Your little old planet connects to an entire network of consciousnesses, network of light, stellar network. And of course, I am very clear about the type of extraterrestrial or extra dimensional, I just use the word otherworldly being and collective that I emanate from, which is non-technology based. And that does not mean that you're not allowed to use some form of technology while you are here on Earth in order to help or improve your ascension, because you are being faced with an enormous amount of technological inhibition to your ascension by these service to self entities. So service to self, the two main camps, chocolate and vanilla, we've got service to self that says, I'm only looking out for number one and I only do what is good for me. To contrast with that is service to others, where you treat others as you would wish to be treated. Those are the words and the teachings of an amazing, great teacher that was here to remind us of this pathway in order to get to energy and continued being, continued longevity, as opposed to entropy, which is dead ends, exploring dead ends, just like going to the edges of the time field, the vortex shape. You go to the dead ends, you figure out, that didn't work. I played all the wrong notes, didn't work. Service to others because you see others as the self. Flawed New Age shadow work erroneously applies that truthfulness to the things that we see in the world and creates a vulnerability, a behavioral vulnerability and emotional vulnerability in being exploited by service to self pathway consciousnesses who are sometimes labeled as narcissists. Get it? Narcissist is be like, me, and only me at the expense. I only care about me at the expense of everything else. Service to others says, I care about the entirety. So it is not an abrogation of your own personal needs, because like, I need food, I need water. I can't just give all of my food and water away. Then I will die. But what I do is I have a responsibility to myself and a responsibility to my community, which is where I get food and water from. You get it? That's really, really big stuff. So I talked about in last week's beautiful galactic history presentation, in pristine, ancient, concurrent Atlantis, we were completely embedded within our environment in terms of frequency. Didn't just eat nothing, we ate frequency, or we were sustained by frequency. And that is the love tone of all of the plants and animals and mineral life around us. We emitted love and we received love. And it was that oscillative reciprocity that sustained us in the world. So if you don't have ecosystem, you can't have you. If you don't have environment, you can't have you. You got to have others around you, or other parts of yourself around you that reflect stuff back to you. And that is truthful on the level, on the scale of stars sending out light, sending out photon and beams of light that go everywhere and then are reflected back as consciousness events. And that is truthful in terms of any kind of economy, where it has to be, I give to you and then you give back to me. So if it is a unidirectional economy, it will collapse because it is not sustainable. So humanity is just starting to recognize the necessity of sustainability. That's not just a catchword that I'm glomming onto here. Sustainability in the sense of that's what a toroidal structure is. An equal amount of in and an equal amount of out. 5 units in, 5 units out. 100 units in, 100 units out. 1,000,000 units in, 1,000,000 units out. And if you constantly have 1,000,000 units of money go to very selective people and then no units go out, then you will have a dead end economy. It cannot be sustained in that level. So service to others, entities, consciousnesses, and characteristics have accrued enough inner wisdom on their journey through reality structure and time in order to recognize that one must be responsible to the ecosystem or environment around oneself in order for oneself to be sustained. I sustain my ecosystem. I give to others. I serve others. And in serving others, I know that that will reflect back to me. And this is behaviorally exemplified by the phrase, I give in generosity and I receive in gratitude. I give joyfully in generosity and I receive in gratitude. This is what healthy, balanced economy is like. I could use my microsprouts as an example. Like I create my broccoli microsprouts because I was just delivering some earlier today. And I send that out to my community. And then somebody gives me $5. I receive in gratitude. I give you microgreens. You give me $5. I receive in gratitude. We sustain each other because somebody else needs the positive cancer-fighting chemicals and phytonutrients and carbohydrates and proteins that are in broccoli sprouts. And I need $5. And that seems to work for everybody, right? Of course, I'm being silly and facetious, but it's a truthfulness, all right? Or this class, something like that, you know, or artwork. I create something with my gifts and talents and insights in this world, send it out, and then beautiful people like you who are watching this and who are students and who send me tuition, sustain me in the work that I do. This is what a higher level economy is all about, and that there is absolutely no conflict, total celebration, and that this is what a balanced, healthy economy is. So I know I'm speaking to people on a very traumatized planet where you've almost never experienced a balanced, healthy economy, and your entire system right now is teetering on the verge of collapse. It's the unhealthiest system that it's pretty much possible to have. So it might be even difficult for you to conceive of or imagine what a healthy, balanced economy is. But that is what true galactic civilization is. So in service to others, you serve others because you know that you will benefit from it. Even though that's not your primary directive, you really serve consciousness itself. Because in the exalted state of unity consciousness, you're like, everything is me. And I want everything to be healthy and to thrive. That is the state that I teach everyone to be in when you do something like Flying Rainbow Lasagna, reality co-creation, and or the Merkaba, because these are related and complementary, but not synonymous. And when you do wish making, if you make a wish, you could be like, I wish for giant bowl of ice cream. That's what I want for me. But then there's also like people are starving in some places of the world. So you're like, hooray, yummy, I got my ice cream, but everyone else is like, sad face, no ice cream for me, no basic calories and nutrition for me. So a service to others wish would be a wish for everyone to receive the nutrition that they require and desire. That's service to others. That means you get what you want for yourself, and also everybody gets what they want. That is the total exemplification of what Flying Rainbow Lasagna is. It is paradise for everyone. Different than the Christian theological definition of heavenly paradise for some, burning in torment in hell for others. No, 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 big contrast on there. So this is not that paradigm. That paradigm comes out of the world of duality, comes out of the world of divine disconnection, where there's this sense of some levels of consciousnesses, a projected desire upon them for eternal punishment, like you're not good enough, you're not good, and you deserve to be punished forever. My eyes going to the side like that, that's my side eye. You get it? That's my skeptical. You can understand it is not something that I agree with or promote. What I do promote is this balanced solution. Like an equation is a balanced solution. 2 + 2 equals, what's the balance of 2 + 2? 4 on the other side, or chemical equations. These molecules rearranged into these molecules over here. Balance. This is a balanced structure. And that means that both sides experience this paradise state, the paradise of infinite being, infinite vastness, infinite heat, infinite knowingness. And that is a state of unity, consciousness, and divine reconnection. And the state of total non-being, total no thought, no presence, no motivation, no energy, no desire, no thirst, no hunger, no need for anything. And that for some of these very, very troubled service to self entities, they have been through and created very, very convoluted time structures for themselves that have created an immense amount of suffering and pain for themselves and for those that they interact with, like you and me. Some of them, it is recognized that that paradise state would be an end, a cease of their own suffering, and that would be a release from levels of torment that are not pleasant. So I would say they are already right now in that endless suffering torment, and that it's not my desire or intention or alignment for them to be there all the time. I don't think that it is necessary or didactic. That's a basic premise from me. So I know that people might, like in terms of cosmic law, I talk about like the foundation of love, the foundation of freedom. It is my personal assertion that suffering is not necessary or didactic, and that the suffering that consciousness is experiencing on that journey towards entropy is essentially like meaningless torment, not learning, not really helping it in some way. Before I go any further, let me go to comments in the chat, because I tend to roll onward and then I will get to these comments hours later. So let's talk about this first. Hold on. And apologies, I have such a dry throat. It's very, very hot out here today. Apologies. First, Melissa's questing with her mind says, doesn't thought keep something in time longer? And the answer is yes. Thinking about something is, okay, the cognitive event of you thinking means this: a living, tiny little particle of thought that is totally external to you flew through your fatty idea catcher, which is called your brain of your organic body. And then you energized those thought patterns that exist in the wake of its trajectory through your fatty tissues, and you add emotional energy to it. That is what thought is. And this is the relation of intellect and feeling state. Feeling state is below my navel. And it's feelings, like emotions, mammalian emotions, that those two things are very, very interrelated. A thought gives you a feeling, and a feeling gives you a thought. You think about your feelings. This is what it is to be a human in the analytical realm. Babies, preverbal infants, they don't have analysis about their feelings. The development of analytical qualities takes place over many, many years in terms of human development and maturation. So even a 3-year-old does not really have analysis about their feelings. Have you guys ever spent any amount of time with a 3-year-old? Like, they will cry just because of their sock. They will just cry. Like, we ask them, like, why are you crying? Be like, my sock. Like, maybe they can't even talk. They'll just point to their sock, like, my sock. Like, they're not really crying for a reason. They are not in the realm of intellect, analysis, and reason. They just feel their emotions. And also, like, please be very gentle on them because they are deeply feeling. 3-year-olds feel deeply. If they're crying about their sock, it's really, 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 it's really affecting them a lot. And that as we mature, part of the process of maturation is achieving some amount of perspective where you think about your feelings, where you're like, I'm thinking, I have this feeling, it's making me cry. Why am I crying? I'm crying about this, I'm crying about this, or I'm happy about this, I'm happy about this. Like, we create then a whole narrative story structure about our feelings. But the thinking cognitive process that Melissa and you would define as thought is having a waveform go through your mind, have a cognitive event, then you add emotional energy to it. The adding of emotional energy is what keeps something reverberating longer. So if you have something that you want to reverberate for a long amount of time, like a wonderful concept, just suggesting the flying rainbow lasagna, you can think about it a lot and you can put a lot of emotional energy into it. And this is not just merely harvesting emotional energy for the astral thought form realm. I had to stop because I'm like, oh, great. Oh, I roll my eyes. Someone's going to misinterpret this, or this is going to be miscontextualized. And I will drop my opera glasses and clutch my pearls. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about we keep things alive when we think about them. Or another good example would be a song that you really love. You keep it alive when you sing it, play it, and think about it, or a memory of a loved one, whether they are present or whether they are far distant in space-time, or whether their consciousness is, they've passed on, they're no longer overlapping in the time filled with you. You keep things alive with your thoughts. Yes. In order to send something to entropy, a big part of it is the removal of attention. Here's my tendril of attention. I send it out to touch on things that I think about in terms of having perception, and then cognitive events about my perceptions. This is a feeler, and I feel stuff with it, and feeling stuff and then thinking about it and then having emotional reverberations about what I felt and thought energizes that stuff. So definitely it is truthful. Energy flows where attention goes. And if you put your attention on a lot of the stuff that is service to self entities, negative thought entities, unresolved emotional perturbation-based entities, or the generalized, like I call it, poop crapola, then yes, that is energizing it. However, this is a facile response because there's a lot of stuff that has been like shoved in your face and that you don't want to think about it, but it is there. The millimeter waves and many other errant signals are not something that you would voluntarily focus your tendril of attention upon. There are things that are literally beamed into your pineal gland and you are forced to interact with that you would like to avoid, that are being, it is happening for the purpose of you energizing something that should be going in the opposite direction of going to entropy. So that is recognized in what I'm sharing, because I don't want anyone to go into self-blame, frustration, or generalized, what is it, when deflated, being generally deflated, because you're like, what's wrong with me? I keep thinking about these negative thought entities and this and that and all these things I don't want to think about. Like, the truth is, guys, it's not your fault, especially over the past 2 to 3 years when there has been a technologically created substrate of lies that is like bad. It's like when if your neighbors play a lot of bad music, it's very, very hard not to think about it, or have a giant pile of manure in their front yard and you're smelling it all the time. Very, very hard not to think about it. So that actually, before I go any further, I had a great analogy. As I told you, I was doing some flying rainbow lasagna dancing today in between preparing my notes. And I actually have to migrate the entire Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans from Teachable to Vimeo. So it's a whole big, long technological thing. So I intersperse technological kind of, difficult stuff with fun, expansive dance and music stuff. So I went outside and I'm dancing in my backyard, and the backyard has some odors that are beautiful. It's right next to a big bush of jasmine. And you're like, ah, jasmine, it smells so beautiful. It is also the place where the big dog makes a lot of poops and there's a lot of flies. All right. And so I use this as an analogy because I was like, this is a perfect analogy for me to share in class. I'm doing my flying river lasagna dance. Like I'm dancing. And sometimes I'm like feeling so uplifted. I'm like, I'm smelling jasmine. This is wonderful. And then sometimes I'm like, flies are landing on me. Flies, get off. I'm smelling poop. This is gross. That's it. Same exact backyard. All right. Same exact physical space-time coordinates, but two very different reality structures or frequencies that I can tune into. And this absolutely relates to your own genetic heritage. Your DNA is both an antenna and a receiver. What you are perceiving in terms of reality structure has largely up until this point been heavily influenced, more heavily weighted towards the service to self entities, lower vibration, negative thought entities, including pathology and addiction, and a lot of things that are unhealthy is the best way for me to be able to say it. To contrast, there's this whole other realm of beautiful, balanced, civilized, uplifted, very loving consciousnesses that it can sometimes be difficult to focus upon because there is loud signal from stuff that is very unpleasant, that it seems to be highly pervasive. But I did notice in my dance, because sometimes when I was in the more exalted states, the flies did not land on me. And I was like, wow, like I'm smelling jasmine. This is beautiful out here. And then sometimes, I feel like my energy went down a little bit, or my focus diminished a little bit, or I just changed the reality station that I was tuning in on. And then flies were landing on me. I was getting annoyed and I was smelling a lot of the doo-doos. And that's it. That is totally the challenge that you face in your current body container as consciousness. Your body container is X amount of service to self, lower vibration, noise in the signal to noise ratio, noise that is non-divine signal, that is stuff that should go to entropy and non-exist. And then, or let's just call it unhealthy thoughts and pathology. And then X amount of stuff that is divine, eternal, loving, perfect presence pattern, everything that is your true state. And the big part that I started my notes with is that it is really a free will choice about which aspects of being and which reality structures we are choosing to tune in on, even amidst the 5G, forceful injection or whatever, non-volitional participation in these pathological thought structures. The 5G really does beam harmful and pathological frequencies into the pineal gland and into the cellular structure and even into DNA. And it is still a free will choice to say, I'm not going to tune into that reality. I'm going to tune into something better. That is why I use all of these different tools also that help me to either shield myself. Like if you see me working with this crystal, I am shielding myself 24/7 with this crystal, clearing my energy field and shielding myself. You also see I have my beautiful structured water, and that's what I'm always drinking here, structured water, inner structuring. All of this inner work that we do for attainment is part of the free will choice. So detoxifying yourself from nano wetware, surrounding your home with shungite and organite, whatever type of protective force fields you can create, choosing to be in joy. Also, I'm sometimes breathless and I arrive at 2:05 instead of exactly on time because Cheeky and I go for a WALK and the PARK. We are choosing to be in joy. It is a free will choice. Because, it's simply not a good quality of life to be like, I will create an EMF shielded bunker, stay in there at all times, never emerge, never do anything. I'm like, no, you got it. You got to live your life and you got to try to do what's positive and have positive, loving connections with both humans, animals, and plants. And we love connecting with the trees and walking in nature. These are free will choices. You get it? So there's an inner conflict that each person faces and that whole entire planet is facing right now, about which direction of reality you're going to go on, which reality roads you're going to go on. So some people personally are going towards self-destruction, de-evolution, depersonalization, hopelessness. And when I say depersonalization, sometimes people go into nothing matters, I don't care, nothing is real. What does it matter anyway? Like kind of existential meaninglessness. Don't care, why try? Some people go into substance abuse, which is depersonalization on a different level, which is take a drug, don't feel. Some people go into depersonalization where they say it's all a reality play, it's all pixels on a screen, nothing matters, therefore that story that I'm seeing about whatever, someone who has died or groups of people who have died, my heart won't feel. It doesn't matter, it's all fake. I'm super skeptical, I won't feel. That is going in the direction of pathology and the stuff that should not exist. And then some people are choosing a different pathway where they're choosing to connect through their heart, be in love with the world. And that does not necessarily mean like bringing the world flowers or a romantic dinner. It's not romance, but to be in love with the world is to be in gratitude for every moment, to be in love with your body, to be in love with life. That's a better way of saying it, being in love with life and finding meaningful activities, including uplifting others, which may or may not include bringing them broccoli sprouts, but it can be kind words, gestures, ways of serving your community. So serving your community is much more than just the self-serving motivation of, well, if I give to my neighbors, then they'll give stuff to me. That is like basic stuff. That is not evolved stuff. You serve your community just for the sense of serving. You give joyfully in generosity. When you give in generosity, it doesn't mean that you give everything in your bank account. It means that you give joyfully. Like, I love giving this stuff out to other people. And then, of course, others should and shall reciprocate and mirror that back to you. You, in a pristine system, would attract only accurate mirrors who would mirror back 100% of what you send out. 100% of what you send out is appreciated by your community and reflected back to you, but it is not merely done for the simplistic sense of getting something from others. It is done for the self-definition joy of having meaning and purpose in your life. When you get up in the morning and you're like, I do stuff and I help people and I'm a good person and I go places and do things. It's beyond hedonism also, which is just doing stuff because it feels good. Like, you're not just in it to feel good, because some people are about like moralistic hedonism. I do this because it makes me feel good, because serving other people makes me feel good. It's beyond all of that. It is a creation of meaningfulness. You create meaning in the world through your free will choice to do good stuff and help others, even as you are also responsible to yourself and helping yourself, because of course I cannot spend 100% of my time helping others or serving others. I must also do self-care. And I'm a huge advocate for each one of you to have positive balance and energy boundaries and personal boundaries about your physical bank account, how much you share with others versus how much you keep to yourself, balance in business. If I grow sprouts and I give it to you, you should give me $5 because otherwise I can't stay in business. That's fair. And self-care means that you also must serve yourself. You got to brush your own teeth. You got to take baths and exfoliate your own skin and put on skin oils and important stuff, because if you never do that, your own body container will wither away and die. And then that will not be of service to anyone. Similarly, if you do not take care of your own body structure, basically all of the red chakra stuff, your somatic cellular body for your basic health, food, and vitality, your home structure of where you live and also where you get your resources from, and also basic levels of how you connect to the world. If you don't take care of that stuff and you destabilize, then your community will have to help you. And that there's no shame in that at all. It's totally fine if, through difficulties in your life, you need help from other people. But what you should do is balance out being responsible to yourself and taking care of yourself and serving others. Because again, if you gave all your money away and you'd be like, hooray, now I have nothing, somebody give me something. And that is also, then that becomes out of balance to your community. So this is all a lot of words on the anthropomorphic level to be able to talk about energetic truthfulnesses. And when you are in Christ here, when you have your inner eye is active, you can see the truthfulness of energy and how energy should be flowing. And it's just no nonsense, no negotiation. Like I give you this, you give me this. This much energy was sent out, this much energy is received. It's mathematical, is what I'm trying to say when I say no nonsense, no quibbling. And that also means that's very appropriate. So in my Aurora Collective, this otherworldly state of being that I co-occupy and experience even while I am here, I say all the time, energy flows to excellence. You do good stuff and you are excellent and you are sustained with the energy that you need to keep going. Like you need a guitar, you get a guitar. You need a piano, you get a piano. You play the piano well, and then everybody is happy. That is just, to me, implicitly evident and sane and appropriate in the structure of reality. Service to self entities and the systems that they create and inhabit, and the way that they've been trying to influence this genetic code here in the world and in your planet and inhibit ascension, are inherently insane, out of balance, illogical, don't make sense. And they are literally the dead ends of reality, that if you go down those structures, if you go down those time roads, and if you reach the final denouement, it's like, dun, 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 the end, you effed up, you're dead. That happens. And that's like my face and my expression of that was like highly inappropriate, because I'm kind of being very disconnected and emotionally non-responsive to something that is very tragic. So yeah, these are terrible life choices that then end in death and destruction. Some consciousnesses have made very, very terrible life choices, including the consciousnesses or entities or whatever we would define them as, because they're really non-beings, non-stuff, not shouldn't be's and never was's. They made choices along the way that have brought them to their present levels of suffering and necessary de-evolution. Why, pardon me, why entropy is a necessary form of de-evolution for them to go into as a restful state, as their final end of their story. Because I say this all the time, even if you got all of the gas, like petrol, in the entire world of energy, all the energy in the world, it would not be enough gas to get in their car, get them back on the highway to where they're supposed to go. They would never, from their present state, from their present position, be able to get to infinity energy, moving fast, knowing everything, and being God at that level. So they, up until the Flying Rainbow Lasagne's creation and whatever innovation, they had two choices, like keep on suffering endlessly on the membranes of death, kind of, drawing energy from the world of the living, or having no energy, but never being able to get fully energized to the point of being at infinity, or like just suffer endlessly without without having anything. And entropy is a positive pathway for them. Everything that I'm describing in terms of the resolution of duality is an incredibly positive pathway. My personal frustrations, if I just may share, have been that whenever I've communicated with that level of service to self entities and emotional perturbations and consciousness residues, I'm always like, here's a pathway, like you can go to paradise now. And because it is a level of insanity, and because it is in self-conflict, and because of the definition of what it is, it often is highly resistant to the sane, positive response of like, oh, sorry, my mistake, I'll go to entropy now. Unfortunately, I had to learn that a lot of this presence or energy structure is not like that. It's like, I don't think I will do that, which is very, very troubling, because you would think like, it's the same thing to do. It just makes sense. Like, just give up the hunt for energy and go to entropy, and you will be totally safe and cool and in a Bose-Einstein condensate and not need anything. And instead, they're like, no, I think I will continue to be in a troubled existence and to trouble and perturb others in their existence. So let me go back to more Questions and comments. Pedro says, being a baby in Atlantis must have been very different than today. It absolutely was. Reproduction or the creation of human body containers is very different than it was today. And being an immature human was very different than it is today. Marie says, I'm torn concerning just about everyone I know got the lollipops, subcutaneous pollutions. Are they also myself? Is it okay to be in service to, I'm not sure, because there's a little misspelling, to them, I think is your question. Let's talk about this. I have similar gone through a big arc, a trajectory of acceptance, because I'm very much based in the sense of free will. If a person wishes to have the lollipop subcutaneous pollutions, then they must be allowed to choose that, even if it's a terrible choice. Just like if someone wanted to shoot up heroin, they could do it, even though I'm totally not in alignment with that choice at all. Then they would also have to face consequences. The difference between heroin injection and the injection of some of these mRNA transformational devices and nanotechnology is that DNA is an antenna. And what happens to one DNA, to one guitar string, if I pluck this guitar string, the rest of the guitar strings vibrate sympathetically. That's DNA. And that's you standing in a crowd of people that might have had these injections. DNA is all connected, and that even includes plants and animals as organisms. So it becomes something that transcends personal choice. And this is, again, responsibility of self versus responsibility to the collective, and balancing out a pure freedom state with your free will choice, not to be exposed to those who have made these choices. So what the pure empirical analytical answer that I would give you, without being emotionally invested in behavioralism or culturalism, would be to say, yes, they are free to choose what they want to do, and then you are free not to be influenced by them. And that means that there would have to be a bifurcation. They would have to live in their own world of only lollipop people, and you would have to live in your own world of only non-lollipop people. And even if lollipop people were far away on a distant island surrounded by barbed wire, they would still be emitting their lollipop song to everyone else, because it is non-local. So it's not even just about something like a protein structure that is created, that is emitted, that you might be exposed to. It's about the song of their DNA. And the song of their DNA is affecting the song of your DNA. So that then what would you do with them? I do not in any way advocate for eradication, euthanasia, or genocide. No, that it never works. Anytime you think like, I will just sanitize the world of my enemy and then everything will be great. This is my SpongeBob phase. It doesn't work, because if you don't resolve something, it always comes back. You have to resolve it. So that's a big thing there. You also have a right in freedom to choose not to be polluted, even tangentially or indirectly, by what others have made a choice to. And also, it's a complex situation because everybody on this planet has been roofinoled. That is the date rape drug. When you go to a bar and somebody slips something into your drink, and then you are no longer capable of rendering consent. And this happens at bars, festivals, other places. Something is a drug that makes a person lose their willpower. This planet has been sprayed with chemtrails that are planetary rufinol for over a decade. It's been going on since like at least 2012, 2013. That takes away human willpower. It not only diminishes your perception, your eyesight, what you can see, what you can know, pollutes the pineal gland so that you can't sense true north with your compass. Which direction is God? I don't know. My pineal gland has been polluted by sky poops, chemtrails. Also, it has diminished human willpower. So this also relates as a fractal microcosm to the ongoing ancient or concurrent invasion of Atlantis that diminished human willpower. That was the invasion of your genetic code. So again, you didn't fall from grace, you were pushed. You didn't fall from your exalted state of being connected to the divine. And my face really shows the pain of the truth of what that experience was or is, and how much it is the primary trauma of our planet and of each one of us, unwilling invaders came into your DNA. And that is an affront to you, an assault on the planet, and an insult to the entirety of DNA, all consciousness everywhere, because guess what? DNA doesn't just resonate with the guitar strings here in this time place. DNA is non-local. So one guitar string playing a bad song over here doesn't just affect all these guitar strings in the same time place. It affects guitar strings retroactively into the past and telescoping into the future and across all time, space, and dimensionality. It's a big amount of bad music that is being played by that. So there are very real questions about whether those who took the lollipops were influenced, whether they could actually render consent, whether they had the clarity of mind to actually choose, and also about whether there was truth in advertising about what those lollipops actually were. Like if I told you this ingredients of this lollipop are nothing but, pear juice and honey, and you're like, hooray. And then it turns out you're eating it and it's one of those lollipops that has like a scorpion embedded within it, which they actually do make for novelty, then you would be horribly disappointed. And some people, I don't think, were informed enough about the true nature of what they participated in, what the ingredients actually were, and what it would actually do to their body. So it is a very convoluted topic about what is your level of responsibility about them and about what they chose, whether they actually chose it, whether they were mind controlled and behaviorally diminished into doing it. But clearly not everybody chose to eat those lollipops. Some people have stronger willpower. Even if somebody ruffinoled you, some people would still fight back very effectively. Some people would not, they would go limp. Everybody has different levels here. When you get to the exalted state of unity consciousness, you care about these other aspects of yourself. You're like, wow, I don't want them to go down the genetic toilet. I don't want them to get harmed in this way, because literally, like, this is not part of my notes, but something that I will just speak about openly here. This moment in human history is the bifurcation of timelines where some consciousnesses are shunted onto dead-end timelines that become extraterrestrial species, such as what is known as the gray aliens or the small gray aliens. Technology-reliant space races or conglomerates that have to have extensive bio-body augmentation to stay alive. That means, well, first of all, they're sterile. They cannot actually reproduce. So they reproduce a lot through like cloning and artificial fertilization practices. But at a certain point, you can't just keep on cloning clones. Like, I don't know if you've ever done like a Xerox of a Xerox of a Xerox. If you do that with DNA, it loses resolution. So it is not an effective way to be able to continue to create organism containers going forward. You lose resolution, you lose coherence. And also, they have lost in many ways their spark, their creativity, their divine connection. In many ways, they've done all sorts of time travel and genetic experiments to try to get stuff from the pre-polluted time to be able to correct their errors. They have reached the dead end of their particular culture, of their particular experiment and self-choices, and recognize like none of this works. They all have augmentations like artificial lungs, artificial pancreas, artificial eyesight, artificial this, artificial that. Like at a certain point, everything gets replaced and there's no real person there, and they can't reproduce and they can't make new real biological containers. That's how far away they go from God on those timelines. It is a shunting of consciousness into those reality structures. And that is very unfortunately what some humans in this time place have started to align with through that first vaccine, through that first, I said the wrong word, lollipop agenda, through that first injection and I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't wish that upon anyone. Of course, like I had the wisdom and foresight to be able to know about it, warn people about it. So some aspect is that people were warned and that they did know, But some people, it's like, you can be like, don't eat that lollipop. Like, it has a scorpion in it. They're still going to be like, I'm going to eat the lollipop. I heard it was good and the government told me to do it, so I'm going to do it. Did they really think it was good? Was the government mind controlling them? Like, these become very, very real, deep questions. When you're in unity consciousness, you care about consciousness, even if it was foolhardy, even if it made horrible life choices. But also sometimes you have to set boundaries, which is the recognition that some consciousness has to bear the responsibility of its choice and will go to entropy. So like the gray aliens, or technology reliant space races that cannot reproduce naturally and that are looking for the solution, like somebody get me out of here, I'm on a dead-end timeline. In a great sense, they have to face responsibility for the choices that they made or the choices that their ancestors made. Because if they can't, if they're not viable as a civilization, as a culture, as an organism, then they should not be in existence. Just like if you can't get off the surface of your planet without using a clank metal spaceship, like you shouldn't get off the surface of your planet. You should just be like, okay, want, try again until you're ready to do the actual levels of attainment that are needed to actually fly as a light being with wings of pure consciousness. So the answer would be, sadly, that you would care about people, but if they got onto those timelines, they would be devolving, and then they would eventually, unevolve and go into a restful state of non-being. However, in reality, there is a lot of hope for those who haven't just outright died as an end result of the side effects of the injection and the pathogenic wetware networks, which they're like fibrous tendrils, don't call them blood clots, that have been growing throughout certain members of the human population. There are detox protocols that you can do that are very effective. And so some of them include NAC, which is a particular type of protein structure, and bromelain, which is available in fresh pineapple, but you can also get these as supplements. NAC plus bromelain. Sorry, I misspoke. Say it again. NAC, the supplement, plus bromelain, the supplement, both inexpensive, might cost $20 to be able to do this, have been known to help detox this. And also monoatomic gold has been also shown to be able to help detoxify people from the self-pollution that they did. Then there's also questions about whether people were exposed to it from a partner, that if they weren't directly injected, but they had sex with someone who was injected, or school children who are too young to even furnish consent for something like getting a tattoo, but who were injected at the request or requirement of their parents, or those who were intimidated or forced to have injections for their workplace, or very, very, very sadly and distressingly, places like Australia, where large aspects of the native Aboriginal population was forcibly injected. That is horrible. I do not see them as being shunted onto the timelines that are part of diminished technology-reliant extraterrestrials at all, because they did not make the choice. They literally were held down and forced to be exposed to these substances. So it's a very, very complex answer that took me like 15 minutes to talk about, but it relates completely to our present level of reality, ascension, personal ascension, and how this relates to planetary ascension, and how this relates to what is the resolution to all of this. Because some people in a very, very like strict boundaries, they're like, yes, they will all keel over and die, and then they won't be a part of the human race anymore. Like, that is very, very harsh, because I actually don't feel that the Aboriginal people who were forcibly injected deserve to keel over and die, so that way there's no more bad music coming from their genes, and then we can all be free. Like, I don't think that's a solution at all. So there has to be something that can be done for people, especially those who were not willingly exposed, or who were forced into it, or non-truth in advertising, those with severe regret. There has to be something that can be done for them. Melissa says, your explanation also explains why, by practicing the FRL once a day, add a thin veneer of thought and feeling state. Yes, yes, yes. thank you for that much more positive topic to be able to be focusing on. Pedro says, if you keep thinking in putis, thinking about them going into entropy works. Yes. So that is beautiful. You're both, Melissa and Pedro, thank you for playing off of each other. I think you did a beautiful interplay there, because in the chat, Melissa also says, yes, Pedro, as soon as I get a thought I don't like, I take energy away and send it to entropy. That is the perfect response to stuff that should go to entropy. You can call it entropic beings, never beings, shouldn't be's, never was is, stuff and characteristics and perturbations that literally should not be there. On the highest level of empirical energy, they're like a warbling of the time-space consciousness time field, like the type of atmosphere that you see up above, the shimmer above a barbecue or like at Oasis. It's an illusion, bending of space-time reality that should not actually be happening, or warpage of space-time that you iron out with your own thoughts and with your own removal of energy. You become like the noise cancellation headphones, 1 up plus 1 down equals neutral. You become the noise cancellation headphones of the cosmos, or the corrective lenses of the cosmos, making it so that light flows exactly to where it is supposed to go. So good emphasis here. If negative thought entities, emotional fragments, unresolved emotional suffering, trauma entities are in your energy field, and if they're trying to talk to you or they come into you as a thought, you don't have to talk to them. You don't have to be like, hey, you get out of here. But what you can do is remove energy from them, send them to entropy. It is a smoothing over way of being able to basically clear your energy field of these perturbations. And if you're going to think, like we're having this topic right now, we are using words, we are having this conversation right now about this topic. We are thinking, we are using words, and your analytical intellect can become your ally in recognizing that you can think about and have cognitive events about them going into entropy. And that's what this whole conversation is. So applause to both of you for saying that. And Adam says, I've noticed if I stare at the planes, quote unquote, the emitters of the sky poop that spray, my vision distorts, and I usually see through the plane and see a bright plasma ball of sorts. Hooray, I applaud, because you're absolutely seeing clearly. So I noticed this back in 2014, 2015. I was taking a lot of pictures of the craft, is what I call them now, that are emitting the chemtrails, or the poopers emitting the sky poop. And I recognize that there are many cloaked vessels that are not actual airplanes. That's why when people go through their whole trajectory, they're like, something is happening up there. It's too big. Doesn't the NOAA know about this? Don't the meteorologists know about this? Doesn't the Air Force know about this? Doesn't somebody know about this? How about if I look on flighttracker.com? Will I see that flight up there? Will I see that flight up there? And the answer is that many of the sky poopers are not commercial flights. They are not aeroplanes with 2 wings. They are part of an illusory network that is causing a mass hallucination against recognition of the true source of what is happening, that there are orbs that precede them and orbs that follow after them in their wake of this chemtrail sky poop that they poop out, and that the orb itself, this is big, does not carry a giant tank of chemtrails, which is why all of this becomes like a very funny trope to those who are the oppressors of humanity. They're like sniggering behind their hand. They're like, they think that there's a giant like tanker truck that goes and fuels up the sky poop planes and poops it out, and then they land and fuel it up again. No, that's not what happens. But there are holographic cloaked craft that are orbs, and the orbs are interdimensional. The sky poop that they emit is also a type of interdimensional self-replicating consciousness-based matter, like in the same way that flying rainbow lasagna is a positive form of spirit and matter combined together, and your consciousness is emitting it. It emits from another dimension. It's a portal to another dimension that emits many tiny portals to another dimension that then come inside of a living organism like you and create a negative portal to an undesired dimension. Big stuff there. There's a lot of truth going on in this class right now. And thank you for being having so much fortitude to be able to effectively withstand the fire hose of truth that is happening right here. And yes, they also respond to consciousness. So there are some people, it's their mission, their psychic mission here in terms of clearing energy and service to others, as well as helping themselves and their environment to clear chemtrails using their psychic powers, and also close those portals so that the continued pollutions do not happen. And the pollutions that are the sky poop are intimately related to what humans are calling graphene oxide, which is the nano-self-replicating technology that comes in the subcutaneous pollutions. And the PCR tests also contained tiny fragments of these subcutaneous pollutions that were actually intranasal, we'll call them, the intranasal pollutions that happened to many people that, again, unwittingly, a lot of people didn't know it was an implantation. They thought they were just being tested. So saliva test, if you ever have to have a test to get on a plane or like take a class or something, saliva test, non-invasive. Intranasal implantation, invasive. Keep it away from your brain and your soft palate up there. But all these substances are interdimensional substances, non-earthly technology that is being used here. Like, this is big stuff. You're incredibly mature and have a great deal of fortitude to be able to recognize the truth of this. It is not a fantasy, or not a nightmarish fantasy. It's not a fabrication is what I'm trying to say. Not merely a fabrication or a phantom of your mind, something that is consensual, where you can all agree that this is really happening, measurable, and in the end, it does respond to consciousness, which is the empowerment tool, that it is feeding off of your consciousness. It is emerging into material reality based upon the hijacking and utilization of your observership. And yes, when you regain and reclaim and retune your pineal gland, you will be able to clear the sky using your psychic powers. And I joke, but I am serious about this. You will do this in the morning easily, before you even have breakfast, before you even make a cup of coffee. You'll be like, time to clear the sky poop, time to clear out negative portals that are basically bending and folding fabrics of the space-time continuum that are not supposed to be there. Because I talk about folding the fabric of space-time point A to point B so that there's no space in between. These would be considered negative rips or tears in reality. And when you think about the number of negative rips or tears in reality that happen from the number of nanoparticles that have emerged into our world, it is a very, very large number to the human mind. However, it is not infinite. So don't be intimidated by the sheer magnitude and the number that is out there, because you will also gain an enormous amount of calculative ability, where you'd be like, oh yes, a task that involves the calculation of 10 million different variables is very, very small for me. When you get your pineal gland online and active and cleared of any sky poop, which you now can, of course, see the direct agenda. Like, we don't want these guys to have their pineal glands active. They're going to clear out all this stuff. They're going to, basically, I should say, when you achieve your superpowers, then that will be a very easy beginning song to play on your genetic piano, like Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. That will be one of the easier beginner things that you do. Then you will move on to much, much larger consciousness, improvement, healing, and rectification of the entire fabric of space-time reality. That will be your beginning lesson. I'm very, very, my face is smiling a lot. I'm very, very happy to tell you that that will be your beginning lesson. And then you'll be like, oh, that was so fun and satisfying. And we all worked together. And I'm so pleased to do that. Then you will go on to even the next larger tasks, because it's a big mess and you need a big bucket and a big mop and a bunch of us doing this together. And it's literally why you are here. Back to my notes. In fact, if you guys don't mind, let me take one moment's pause. Thank you for that brief break. Back to my notes. Okay. So flying rainbow lasagna as a bridge, as literally a type of positive genetic bridge to be able to combine places that are supposed to come together. That's a huge distinction to make between any type of technology or force field frequency weaponry that is used to bring together realms that are not supposed to come together, as opposed to bringing together realms that are supposed to come together. This reunites you with your true genetic heritage, with your true divine essence, with who you truly are. And again, like, it might feel like you are reconnecting with something that is totally other than you, because you might have spent your whole entire life creating a self story of who you are that is not in reference to your true divine heritage. So back to service to self versus service to others. Again, this is another example of duality. And then I'm going to nullify the duality, but I've already been doing that all throughout the whole entire presentation. Service to self is at the expense of other people. And it is self-convenience and avoidance of responsibility. Instead of responsibility, avoidance of consequence. If you want to know one of the hallmarks, as I drink my coffee here, one of the hallmarks of service to self entities is responsibility avoidance. And that can also mean, oops, did something wrong, press the time toaster, oops, did something wrong, hop into another dimension, oops, did something wrong, eat another planet. Very much avoiding the consequences of very poor life choices or even cultural choices, and then trying to somehow sweep it under the carpet. Very, very different than my collective on the levels of reality that we inhabit and celebrate, where everything is about honesty, authenticity, and responsibility. I talk about this all the time. You are responsible when you are responsive to a situation. And that is what it is to be a true galactic citizen. And that is what the culmination of this class is going to be next week. It's called Flagging with Lasagne, the future and beyond. But it basically is about what happens after ascension. After ascension, are you like, I'm floating like on a cloud? Like what happens? What happens? You become connected to the rest of the galaxy. You become connected to everything that you've been cut off from and limited from being genetically diminished and diminished in your cognitive and consciousness capacitation. You have to be able to know more and perceive more in order to be able to really be an active participant in all that is going on at higher levels of reality. It is a beautiful cosmic dance party there, and you are desired. You're invited and you're desired. What's the problem? You have to learn a lot of stuff because it is not done through a clank clank metal spaceship. You literally have to restructure your entire consciousness and who you are in order to become shaped in the right way. So it's an attainment to be able to do that. The service to self entities occupy the interstices, which is the place between vibratory rates. It is literally a place between earth and heaven. This is tough because I don't want you to get too fixated upon this, because earth, heaven, and hell, these words all are filled with emotional baggage. But if we were to say like the most elevated level, that is heaven here, and then earthly, mundane, embodied physical reality here, and then you have the interstices in between. And the interstices are a place where there is currently an enormous amount of friction, loss of energy, noise in the noise to signal ratio, that there should not be any static on the line. It should be a completely clear place. So the service to self entities have gotten themselves stuck there, either willingly or unwillingly, wittingly or unwittingly. They are there in a semi-state of being, sustained on the energy that is misappropriated from other beings who are energy beings who are supposed to have energy. And the service to self entities do not want the scales of reality to be balanced. They don't want rectification. They don't want the perfect integration, the perfect meshing of earth and sky, of the heavenly reality, the realm of pure light, pure intelligence, pure organizational data, divine mind, presence pattern, and the world of biology and matter and atoms and forces and vectors that we see here in the physical world. Because that would be literally heaven on earth. And that is everything that I am here to teach you about, exemplify in my body, and be a guardian, to use the language, hold the space for, make it possible for that to happen. And when we talk about people heading in some direction, some people are devolving, and I talked about that, hopelessness, addiction, depersonalization, checking out, just like backing away slowly from life. This is, to me, the entire opposite approach, which is trying to make this world that we live in a heavenly state, because that is your true birthright. When I talk about the brochure and what it's supposed to be like to be here. Your body in a perfect state of health and vitality, no more decrepitude, no more disease, no more death, and definitely increased what you would call superpowers, or reconnection to your true divine heritage and levels of personal perception and empowerment that make life an amazing, fun adventure and expansion of your consciousness, as opposed to a grim death march done with an enormous amount of pain, suffering, and fear. All right, good, 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 good. So those guys do not want that perfect enmeshing, that perfect heavenly state, because not only would it take away their world, there would be no barrier and no impediment to these two levels of, it's kind of like when a hot front meets a cold front, you know, like in weather, these two very different rates of flow that are happening. If that interstice gets rectified, then these two areas are able to meet very effectively. Not only do they lose their real estate of where they're existing, not their unreal estate, they lose their unreal estate, but they also would have to face responsibility, cause and effect of the things that they've done. So what they would like to do is to continue to keep a state of indeterminacy, a state where there is not justice yet. And this speaks a lot to the human existential question of, mommy, daddy, if God exists and God is good, how can evil exist? If God is good, how can evil exist, and how can evil go unpunished for such a long amount of time? How can the wicked prosper? All of these words are very emotionally charged. You know that I'm not about that level of judgment and religious theology, but that is the human questioning with the mind. How come good people, bad things? Why do, mommy, daddy, why do bad things happen to good people? And the answer for that is there's a lot of injustice. There has been not a perfect enmeshing of divine presence pattern flowing throughout the entirety of human experience: biological, social, cultural, energetic, economic. If everything here flowed in perfect divine presence patterns, you would have heaven on earth, and you would have justice. You haven't had justice yet, and not for many millennia, or it is an ongoing process that's been unjust for a very long amount of time. If you had justice, they would get what they deserve. You would get what you deserve. There would be no occupiers of the interstices anymore. This is a revolution in the structure of the cosmos. Yes, because also there would have to be justice for all of the suffering that was created by the occupiers of the interstices. All of the suffering that has occurred from their energy harvesting, all the suffering that has occurred from the killing and enslavement that they have done. Pretty much, if you want to ask the question, the answer is because there are these consciousness residues on the smeared on the membrane of death that are doing a lot of bad stuff, doing bad stuff for a long amount of time, and have created every disease, every unpleasantness, every torment, every torture, and every death. They are directly responsible for. That's very big stuff. Now here's your challenge. Because those guys that have created so much suffering and torture and torment, in the unity consciousness perspective, they're actually aspects of you. It's like, whatever, mic drop. Dun-dun. Really, really tough. Because you're like, no, Aurora, not me. Like, I'm good. I know you are good. And I know that God is good. And I know that the totality presence that is at energy is all filled with good stuff that is supposed to exist. And when you look around, the truism of this teaching and of when you begin your awakening of your pineal gland and your higher insights, you will say, all of this is me. Even the evil stuff, even the suffering and torment, even the stuff that's not supposed to exist. It's all me, it's all God. So here's how I have it written in my notes. So I am me, the individual, and I am me, the group, and I am me, pure consciousness. So in your own body, you have genetic heritage of various different influencers. Some of those influencers are the technology using, sky poopers, space races, They're lodged in your DNA because the membranes of death are part of your chakra system, and they are intertwined with your DNA and its behavior. And some of what is inside of you are the elevated galactic levels of consciousness. And these are different approaches to consciousness containers in the world. None of this shall ever be taken out of context, misconceived or misconceptualized of my teachings as an acceptance, celebration of, or allowance of totally unjustifiable behavior. Killing, enslaving, torture, torment, genetic, violating the entire genetic code, not only of a species or of a planet, but of all DNA everywhere. Totally unacceptable, totally not okay. When I use the word acceptable, it's tough because love and unconditional love is acceptance. So that's like saying, I accept that that stuff is going on, but it is not acceptable or celebrated behavior. Do you understand? And so I synopsize this by saying, like, please do not hug and kiss a demon. Like, definitely not behaviorally, definitely not in the personality characteristics of those around us, or in the non-embodied, never was, shouldn't be characteristics of those who occupy the membranes of death. We do not accept and celebrate, like, hooray, like that stuff exists. Stuff that doesn't supposed to exist exists, and it's totally going in the wrong direction and doing the wrong stuff. And that's like, no, it's totally not acceptable. But what you recognize is what happens when you play a wrong note. Let me play some wrong notes. You can't hear them because Zoom does weird things to the video. I just played a bunch of bad music. What happens to that bad music? What happens to bad music when it is a cognitive event or a consciousness residue or an unresolved trauma? It kind of just hangs around. It just, lingers on there. The bad event, trauma, consciousness residue, perturbations of the field must be resolved. And that is the rectification event that is ongoing. And as it is resolved, those things go to their dead ends. They go to their final denouement, and they can go there instantaneously through the flying rainbow lasagna, as opposed to waiting 13 billion years for the entropic heat death of the universe, which I have spoken about before. The eventual end to the creation of stars, the generation of light, and everything being sucked into various different black holes to go into the portal to the next level of reality, leaving behind this world as a black hole, Swiss cheese, Bose-Einstein condensate of non-being. That will happen eventually. Eventually, all of that stuff will devolve and be frozen in time, no longer moving through time. But until it has done that, it is still troublesome. Troublesome to you, troublesome to me, troublesome to the entirety of existence. And we can all have a much, much nicer, better time instantaneously through the present resolution of those undesired waveform patterns, as opposed to waiting until eventually, like, the gong will stop reverberating eventually, like at the end of the universe. Yes, I'm being very facetious. Yes, that's a long amount of time and a lot of wasted time and a lot of unnecessary and wasted suffering. It can be direct and instantaneous. Flying rainbow lasagna. Hold on one moment. So, in the true galactic perspective, which is your challenge to even conceive of and then to embody? When you are in unconditional love, you do accept even the opposite or, antithesis of whom you are, or consider it your precursor. All right? Because when you're really in these higher levels, and in tuning into my video from many years ago, my original whiteboard, it was a lot easier without the 5G for me to be in those levels of unconditional love. I really did see and feel that like these errant signals are unwise. They are foolhardy. They don't know, or made horrible bad choices, or are not well formed. That is what I mean by precursor, because light and consciousness is our, like, singular and plural, on a journey of evolution. Light waves and photon are on a journey of evolution. It is not the same at the end of its journey, the path of light, as it was at the beginning. It is learning and growing through this process. I'm going to get to your wonderful comments in a second, because I know it's relevant to what I'm saying. It is learning and growing on its journey, and that sometimes it takes many, many wrong notes. Let me see if I can even change a setting, press a button, change a setting, see if it'll work. Change a setting, many, many wrong notes. Is this the wrong note? No, now my piano is not. Wrong note. Oh, I hope you can hear that. It didn't hurt your ears. No, wrong note. No, that is definitely the wrong note. No, wrong note. Maybe, is that the right note? No, that's not the right note. That was the right note. So all of those, as I hunted and pecked on my keyboard, all of those wrong notes could be considered the precursor to the right note. That's me. I'm the right note. I'm the ascension personality. I'm the keeper. I'm the one that actually is like when you press save on the term paper. It's like, yes, that's the version of reality that we're actually going to save. But these other versions of reality could be considered aspects of the structural integument that are undesired artifacts of the process of searching for the right note and finding that path of least likelihood and central core timeline, and that they are a part of the larger reality structure. But that is a very, very difficult perspective to maintain in terms of spiritual attainment when you are actually in the physical world, as you and I are, and are often beset by either other embodied cellular human beings who are foolhardy, who in the choice of what is exacerbated in their body state, like which genes are you exacerbating? The ones that are going to, the ones that shouldn't be's, or the keepers. Some of them are exacerbating the characteristics that are shouldn't be's. Why? Why should they not be? For example, something like nihilism or addiction and substance abuse. Why not? Why should that not be? Because it leads to lack of longevity. It leads to decrepitude and death. It leads to the membrane of death, not to that central core timeline of eternal focus and connection to divine heritage. And so people get to make choices about what notes are inside of them and what music they want to listen to, and then what music they want to play that is inside of them. And if they're making choices about like, screw everything, take a bunch of crystal meth and, jump off a bridge, then they are going in a different direction than you are. If you're like, no, care about your community, eat broccoli sprouts, do good things for others, be generous and joyful and receive in gratitude and create positive, healthy structures of reflecting back this energy back and forth between one another. These are two very different reality structures. And at a certain point, there is a full divergence. At a certain point, these reality structures really do not overlap. So there's big challenges in dealing with the organic human multicellular community members that are going toward, that are devolving instead of evolving. And then enormous challenges at dealing with the larger, well-established, non-being entities that have been occupying the membrane of death for a long amount of time. Well-established levels of what you would call evil, and things that should not be in existence, and the things that use technology to oppress and harm others. And they know it, and they know what they're doing. That's always a revelation to me because this is like Professor Aurora. I'm like, oh, like I've calculated your math homework and you're doing stuff wrong. They're like, we know. We know, sniggering behind their hands. We know we're doing stuff wrong. And that to me is like a revelation. I'm like, they know that they're doing their homework wrong on purpose. I have to catch my breath. Like, this is something that I've never even considered before, because that's not the level of reality that I come from, because that would be insane, self-conflictory, and self-destructive. And I'm like, that, okay, all right. So so those things only last for a little bit of time, because when you're insane, self-conflictory, and self-destructive, at a certain point you devolve and you break apart and you don't have being anymore. They're in that process. All right. Before I go any further, let me get to these two comments. Because Melissa says, resolving energy and matter out of place. I love that you use that. That's moop. Matter out of place. And energy out of place is eop. Energy out of place. So resolving energy and matter out of place reminds me of how our bodies are capable of, and Earth is capable of, doing a cleanse or detox. Things that were once get to be cleansed. That is exactly right. So, you know, our beautiful planet here is totally a larger macrocosm of our own individual body states. We learn a lot from what our own body does in how the planet, consciousness, and ecosystem is behaving. Planet is totally alive. Planet is totally sentient. Planet is totally your friend and your ally in exactly the same way that my little tiny cells of my body are my friends and my allies. And I want you guys to love and hug your bodies. Literally, I want you to do that. It doesn't have to be right now, at least once a day. Like, I want you to express gratitude and appreciation. Like, body, I love you. Thank you, little tiny cells. Thank you for slogging through so much shit and crapola in the world along with me, because they are fighting for freedom too. They are also on the journey of spiritual attainment. They don't want to die. So when these guys are in, sometimes there are, like, you know, drug addicts in the park. And I'm like, these guys are in self-destruction. The cells of their body are actually fighting hard to survive. Do you know that? The larger metacognitive entity, known as whatever, Joe Smith, who is like, you know, taking crystal meth and killing himself in the park, he, overarching entity, devolving and going into self-destruction. But every cell in his body is always like, no, like, I want to live. Like, stop doing this poison stuff to me. That is just tragic to me. It's like, I can't, the frequency and the truthfulness. When your inner eye starts to open, you feel everything around you. I'm telepathic and empathic. I walk past those people and I feel so much distress from their bodies. They're like, no, like, I don't want to die. Stop doing this to me. But someone else is driving the car. And that's the larger cognitive person known as Joe Smith. But then also Joe Smith might be heavily influenced by negative thought entities, some of which are ancestral, some of which are technology-based, coming from the membranes of death via 5G networks and other places like that. Because it is a level of insanity for people to do what they are doing. And some of them are choosing that insanity instead of choosing to grow, evolve, and serve their community. And if you have too many people that are choosing that insanity, your community dies. That has happened to many places where white powdery drugs destroy communities, because people become so mired in addiction, and they never even have economy anymore. No one is producing. No one is constructing anything. Everyone is devolving. That's how you destroy a world. Do you get it? Like, if you're an occupier of the interstice, here, this is me as a fake advertisement. Wait. Are you an occupier of the interstice? Would you like to destroy a world? Well, choose this substance, sprinkle it liberally upon the population, and you will see the world devolve. Ding! I know, you can tell. We've been at this for a couple of hours, and I'm getting to the point where I'm like a little bit inappropriately silly. Let me go on to Charlie's comment. Charlie, I'm happy that you popped in. It's good to see you. I was just feeding Cheeky some dog bones that you sent to us. Thank you very much for the dog bones. Charlie says, regarding the it's all me, seems like we don't need to accept our traumatized personality and torn, distorted consciousness. Rather, we need to heal and resolve these distorted aspects of self. FRL to do this instantly seems so much healthier than waiting for the entropic heat death of the universe. Yes, FRL. Thank you for that. You are in the perspective of unity consciousness, and I challenged everyone to the spiritual weightlifting. Like, can you get there? You're there. I acknowledge you that is an attainment. You're looking at these aspects of self, which can be very, very difficult, especially if they are troublesome, causing you harm, causing you suffering, trying to destroy your world. You got a bunch of, hey guys, sorry to tell you this, but you got a bunch of world destroyers here trying to destroy your world. Then, of course, you also have world protectors here trying to construct and hold the capacitation for world construction here. So please never just go into hopelessness. But they are aspects of self. and they're aspects of self that do need resolution, is a good way of putting it. Because if I say the word healing, because all of the good people here are like, I want to heal you. I want to heal the narcissists and the drug addicts and this and that. And the entropic entities, they would be like, heal me, mama, heal me. And that's like, give me lots of energy. Talk to me a lot. I'm going to lay down on the psychiatrist couch. This is me as a negative thought entity. I'm laying down on the psychiatrist couch. I'm putting my hands behind my head. Let me tell you about my mother. These are all the bad things that happened to me. Pity me. Like, all these different things. It's like, they love attention. Energy flows where attention goes. Do not give them the therapy couch. That is not the way to heal or to improve the situation. So although you're not you, Charlie B, but well-meaning people have a positive desire to help heal and fix things that are narcissists. You wanted to finish my sentence by saying inherently broken. Definitely they are not well formed and not well structured in their creation and in their formation. But the real healing is not through giving energy and attention. It is what we affirmed before my little coffee break. It is the removal of energy and attention. So instead of sit down on the therapy couch, let's talk about your mother and tell me all the bad things that ever happened to you, it would be go into a state of non-being now. Please allow me to remove all energy from you, all thought, all emotion, and also to remove any energetic investments. I call that divesting. So when you divest yourself of a particular stock, you're like, I'm selling off all my IBM, I'm selling off all of my Xerox. They must divest themselves of all energy because they also create traumatic, reverberative investments in those whom they have abused so that they can get energy later. And sometimes it's generations later. This is how they sustain themselves in these unlikely places on the interstices. And this is why healing yourself heals the fabric of time, space, and consciousness. You heal the energetic deficits that these guys were sustained on, and that way they have nothing left to be sustained upon, and that brings them to a state of entropy. And that is the kindest, most merciful thing that you can do to them. And then to do it instantaneously through the Flying Rainbow Lasagna is even better than them having to go through many more billions of years, and also causing that much more exponential suffering in if they are a bull in a china shop, in the many different china shops that they would smash through, planets that they would eat and consume, species that they would destroy in their efforts to sustain themselves. Even though when you really get down to it, I'm going to go deep here, it's not really a plural, it's really a one. It is really one insane thing. Consciousness, entity, never was, never be, that has bifurcated itself and fragmented itself into various different technological outgrowths or appendages, some of whom are like artificial intelligences, some of whom are like the gray aliens that I talked about, kind of the melding of cyborg, bio plus techno, some of whom are genetically modified. All of that stuff really represents the fragments and outgrowths of one entity or consciousness or thing that shouldn't exist, that is very, very troubled, very, very insane, and very, very not in the right way at all. And that's that thing that should go to entropy. So that is one of the most effective tools in terms of being a first-person experiencer here in this world as you're dealing with all these different entities and consciousnesses. So I want you to, when you're dancing in your backyard and there's either the smell of jasmine or the smell of dog poop, tune in on and focus on the smell of jasmine. That is literally a consciousness choice, and it's a flipping a switch in your DNA. And then also recognize that in terms of all of these different exopolitics and space races and things that we talk about and perceive about, like there's all these different, there's Pleiadians, there's Arcturians, there's guys that don't have an official brand name, and metal saucers and portals and like I said, Battlestar Galactica-esque spaceships that have an metallic part outside and then a gooey biological part inside. I'm being a little silly and facetious there, but that actually exists. Like their ships are alive, but like my ship is alive, but it's a light body alive. Their ships are alive, but they're based on like clone cultures and cloned cell cultures that are just tormented over many, many multiple cell generations. Those consciousnesses are all emanations from this single, very distressed origin. And that is really what happens when you get to unity consciousness at the level of entropy, that you have all of these different things that have kind of segmented themselves and compartmentalized themselves and become discrete. And then they also think, hold on a second, they also think like, I'm this, guy over here and I'm this guy over here and we're going to fight it out. Like, sky battles or Star Wars, nothing but Star Wars. Okay, now I'm getting very silly, but conflicts amidst exopolitics, it is all hand puppets. It's all hand puppets of the same thing. Like here's one guy over here, here's one guy over here. Imagine I have 12 million different hand puppets. It's all connected to the same person. And that is a truism of unity consciousness in the negative polarity, that they're all outgrowths of this thing that is one thing that has been very, very troubled and has caused a lot of trouble, but that if you resolve that one thing, everything gets resolved. That's the highest level of the stuff that you can do. So when you start to learn about all these things and your inner eye starts to awaken and you start to perceive otherworldly beings, extraterrestrial, extra-dimensional, all of the technology using ones, those are the hand puppets that are outgrowths or appendages is the word I'm looking for. Appendages of the primary distressed consciousness or thing that shouldn't actually exist. And by resolving that original thing that shouldn't actually exist, you then resolve all of its outgrowths. This is really, really deep stuff because right now you're embedded in linear time and have a linear perspective. But as your inner eye starts to awaken, then you really gain the insight to comprehend real multidimensional existence and your own multidimensional existence. Because as I move forward a little bit more on my notes, I don't want to ignore Melissa's comment though. Wait, okay, yes, because hold on a second. I'm going to press pause on multidimensional existence because Melissa has a great comment that's very relevant. It says, this is why you had to come here in the collapsed waveform. Exactly. Because you need to do a new thing in order to the new probabilities and possibilities to be possible as timelines going forward. You absolutely understand, Melissa. Thank you for that recognition. You get me, and that is priceless to me. So I'm sending you so much gratitude. This is why I had to come here as the distillation of my Aurora Impulse collective, that is a thought on the network of stars, into this waveform type of structure here of this body, because I had to do something and plant seeds in 2001 in order to change the reverberative structure of reality to make it possible for others to then also do something similar and completely shift reality into a new direction. From the perspective of the other world outside of time, space, and the third dimensional perspective of being embedded in linear time, which is the fourth dimension, because I don't want you to be confused about like 3D, 5D, I use different language than that. But having a body form and being embedded in linear time, from my perspective outside of that embeddedness, I could see how essential it was to make a change in 2001. And that if a change was not made then for some form of redirection or a correction, then you would have wild gyrations, destabilizations of the whole entire cosmic washing machine. And then imagine a washing machine that is, I talk about ka-chunka chunka. It's going ka-chunka chunka chunka chunka, and it goes so much that the bolts fly apart, the sides fly apart, the laundry suds go everywhere, and then it flies out of the electrical plug, and even the power station that's connected to blows up. Everything in the cosmic washing machine blows up. And you do not want that. So that is why the cosmos augments itself by necessity. Yes, flying rainbow lasagna as a math solution, empirical energy solution, had to be innovated in that moment in order to sustain reality structure. And that is what happened, and that is what I did, and that is why I did it, and that is also why I am here. I embody it and show you what it's like in my presence, and then also speaking to you cognitively so that you can know and understand, have an intellectual, analytical experience of what it is, and then embody it yourself. All of these things were necessary in order to shift the fabric of reality. And I also jokingly say I thought my gig would be over in 2003. I literally thought that. I literally thought when I came in 2001, all I need to do is figure out this flying rainbow lasagna shape, because I had it as an inner structure, but not yet as artwork. So I spent the first 18 months of my time here as a walk-in doing all of these diagrams and pictures and drawings, and that's what it's in my notebooks. That's what I made into those cards that I call Aurora's message to humanity. There's some very, very deep messaging in there, even in these little pencil sketches that I was making as I was trying to figure out, like, how do I talk to humanity about this? How do I communicate it to them? I did not have good communication skills when I first came here. Part of it was from neurological deficit, and part of it was from being a cultural outsider. So I didn't even really understand art. I had to learn, like, if you want something to be respected as art, you have to put it in a frame or put it on a pedestal. Like, if you don't do that, then it is not communicated that that is a significant object that has some aspect that is more than merely decorative. So I had to learn, like, oh, like, you gotta do this, and then you gotta do this, and then you gotta do this, and then, like, you have to do all these different things in order to be respected in the world, and you have to have this type of shampoo. Like, literally, you have to learn what type of soap to use on your hair. Like, you have to do all these different things, jump over all these hurdles and go through all these hoops in order for people to listen to your message in the world. And so that is what I have successively been doing over this course of, like, 2 decades at this point. Yes, we all laugh now ruefully. Thought you would be done in 2003. No, I wasn't done in 2003. What I did in 2003 was that, I'll show you. I'm jumping up again. My first sculpture. This is my first flying rainbow lasagna sculpture. It's pretty good for a first try. It's made out of, like, Sculpey children's clay, and that I remember making this sculpture and being like, dun dun, okay, good, job is done, because I made this, and then all I had to do was show it to people. I showed it to a bunch of people, and then I'm like, okay, done, my job is done. But my job was not done, because you know why? It wasn't enough. It was not enough to redirect humanity, to simply make that form, have a bunch of notebooks, and be doing the flying rainbow lasagna myself. It was absolutely essential for me to fine-tune my communication skills and be able to bring that message and a stronger sense of that message embedded into the human cultural fabric of this time space. So that is what I've been doing on my gig down here, and it's had a positive impact, because you know what? You're all still alive. You haven't died, your planet hasn't exploded, the cosmic washing machine has not jumped out of the wall socket, and so it's going everywhere. And yeah, although there are very many perilous times when humanity has been teetering, your ascension is inevitable. And that is not only because of my presence here. Again, I'm the distillation of and a portal to a much, much higher, larger collective of consciousness that's galactic scale consciousness. That is what you are all hoping to interact with. So beyond the hand puppets of evil, which could be a good song or a good name for a band, there is the collective of galactic good, that who are incredibly adept, incredibly well organized, powerful, determined, meaning, like, will never give up on you, have never abandoned you, will never give up on you, are totally present and are totally active, and are very committed, is the word, to the success and inevitability of your own personal ascensions and this planetary ascension. So I have this in my notes here. The thing that you are connecting with when you flying rainbow lasagna and you get to these levels of higher unity consciousness, it might appear to be alien. And in some of my artwork, you might see that I use that as a convention. The big giant eyes, kind of, you know, square, triangular shaped head. It's a convention of something that is otherworldly. Please don't ever think that I'm in any way advocating for you to be or connect with gray aliens or anything like that. It is a shorthand, a visual shorthand in my language. You think that you're connecting with something alien or otherworldly, but you are really connecting with aspects of your own self from another time in time, some of which are your origins, because again, your human containers have star origins. and also who you're going to be, who you evolve into. I have this written in my notes. So there are higher dimensional beings that want to help you because it is the same self. They're you coming from a different direction, moving at a vastly different rate in time. That is part of responsibility to ecosystem and responsibility to community. You really recognize, if I don't do something about that, that's me down there in a different form. That means I don't get to be me. That is a large part of my motivation for jumping in 2001, because I'm like, well, wait, if that doesn't happen down there and that doesn't happen, all of this is going to percolate upward, ding, to me over here. And I talk also about like graduating classes and the mountain climbers who are helping successive generations to get up to higher levels of attainment. And like, if you don't have a generation and no one is there to help pull you up, like, how are you going to get up? And I've also spoken to you about like reaching backward down the time tunnel. There might have been times in your life when you just felt a nudge or even a very, very strong pull to be able to get out of the mire, out of your difficulties, out of your life situations. It's you. It is you helping yourself, kind of like that science fiction movie Interstellar, where the guy is an astronaut, goes through a quasar, gets kind of into the back behind the scenes of linear time, and it turns out that the supernatural presence that was like sending him messages and, you know, changing the clock on his wrist and just pushing books off of the bookshelf, it was himself. It was himself. He's waving at himself through the portal of his own spaceship. It's yourself helping yourself through time. But that also means that these guys that are causing so much suffering, that's yourself effing yourself through time, which is a difficult acceptance to accept. And you accept, like, that version of me is so effed that I would make such poor choices. I'm not, you know, pretending to be in your shoes. I would make such poor choices that I would do this crappy crap stuff that then would hurt me here and wouldn't know about it. That's the type of realization that you're having. That is unconditional love. But unconditional love is also saying, like, I don't want to be the subject of your crappy choices. Like, just because you're making crappy choices there, it doesn't mean that I want to die over here. So it's a balance. All of this is a balance. Every single lesson that you're learning here, like, some lessons are transferable. These are transferable job skills. Some are not transferable job skills. You know, like doing your MailChimp email list is not a transferable job skill to the higher dimension, all right? But balancing the sense of responsibility to yourself with responsibility to your community or ecosystem is a transferable job skill. That you learn that while you are walking on 2 feet as an individuated person here. And then that is transferred to what it is like to be in a non-earthly, non-mundane, purely energetic form where you still have individuation in an ecosystem of light, and you are a part of that light, and all light is you, and you also still have your individuality. And what do you do, and how do things flow, and what is your responsibility, and what are your boundaries? You transfer all of those same lessons that you learned being in community and dealing with meth addicts in the park that you deal with in higher levels of reality. So they are very, very, the challenges that you face here are valuable opportunities for you to learn, accrue more light, and get more wisdom. So that is the positive nature of what you're experiencing here, even while I also recognize the difficulties and the suffering. But it is a meaningful existence. I wanted to say it is not a non-meaningful existence. I will speak in positives. It is a meaningful existence. Your existence here has meaning. So duality was created from the act of being quarantined away from divine consciousness. Again, according to the brochure, you will come to earth, you will be incarnated, you will, or I should say, you should come to physicality, be incarnated, and you will maintain your divine connection, like a baby that never has its little fontanelle close on up. And instead, what has happened is everybody who comes here gets quarantined, cut off from the source, and has a forgetfulness that God is you, and that you do all this stuff, and that you are part of this unity consciousness. And when you reconnect with divine consciousness, I got that, you are really reconnecting with yourself. It's yourself in the mirror, and there's nothing to fear. You know who you are, because if you are energizing these pathways that are of self-cultivation, coherence and longevity. You're like, yep, I'm good. I know who I am inside. And that is also part of the transferable life skills at being here. You're like, I know who I am inside. And you're in this crucible, you're in this time of great intensity right now that sometimes might test you. Like, who are you and who are you not? And do you have integrity even under enormous amounts of pressure, which is what, or duress. Hi, Anne, good to see you, my dear. Thank you for tuning in. Even though you might be under enormous amounts of suffering and pressure and duress, you learn about what are your true characteristics. Who are you truly as a person? And then when you connect with higher God self, you're like, I'm not afraid because I know who I am. I know that I am good. I know that I am not a power abuser. I know that I'm about justice and mercy and compassion and forgiveness. And that's why I say that, like, I personally, in terms of looking at and structuring life, I don't think that suffering is necessary or didactic. I know that about me. Basically, this is the thought structure. If I were going to run the world, I would not say everyone's going to suffer because it's necessary and that's going to teach you a lot. I would say, no, let's avoid suffering, and because it's not necessary and it's very unpleasant and it inhibits teaching. And that's literally my whole approach to everything that I teach in the world. Teaching this class, teaching music or art, teaching young people in any way, teaching a dance class. That I'm all about encouraging people towards their greatness, bringing them away from suffering, and that I think that suffering itself just makes it you're constantly waiting for the next punch to the face. That does not help you to learn. Being relaxed and happy helps you to learn. You get what is a good learning environment? Being abused? No. For verbally or physically? No. How about being starving? No. No. Being in a peaceful, positive, life-affirming situation helps you to learn, truly. And so I know that about God. Like, if I were in charge of stuff, that's how I would do stuff. It is my projected presumption that that would also be the personality characteristic of God as I approach light speed, getting faster and faster, and connect with God. I'm not afraid of some kind of punishment or smiting or cosmic smackdown, anything like that. I think of God as this wonderful, very loving, very compassionate, amazing aspect of higher self. And so I hope that you also are on similar journeys of refinery of consciousness. I'm going to get to this in my notes because all of this is about a refinery of consciousness. The entire chakra system is a refinery of consciousness within your own life incarnation. The planetary structure here is a refinery of consciousness. The solar system is a refinery of consciousness. The network of stars is a refinery of consciousness. And that means that my Aurora Collective, as an impulse on the network of stars, is in the process of being refined, learning, growing, getting smarter, becoming more wise, becoming more. This informs why I would come here as Flying Rainbow Lasagna. You innovate stuff, you do stuff, you make stuff happen, you try to fix stuff up, you have good intentions, and you take the cause and effect responsibilities of the things that you have intended in mopping up stuff that are, errant signals, and energizing the things that you do want to experience. And it's true of stars themselves also. Stars are in the process of emitting light as an self-evolutionary process. Stars learn about the world through the world that they create. It's the journey of an artist. Get it? You learn about the world through the world that you create. Create an externalization of your internal process, and then you learn about it and it feeds back into you. This is also in my notes. So I got what genes are you exacerbating and embracing? Not merely the looking out for number one genes, but also the unity consciousness genes. And that involves serving Earth, the ecosystem, basically all light and all energy everywhere. You're part of a much larger organism, much larger, I should say, continuum of consciousness. Consciousness is a phenomenon. It is a supernatural, greatly unlikely phenomenon. It's not the type of thing that you should take for granted, like consciousness, schmonsciousness, it just is everywhere. No, it is the most incredibly precious thing that you could possibly have. And when you are in unity consciousness, you're like, I am responsible to consciousness itself. It didn't just arise through nonsense or willy-nilly, is a good way of saying it. It didn't just arise out of happenstance. It was very, very intentionally made and created and generated, and then it has been very, very consciously crafted, focused, and sustained. Because if you want something that is that unlikely and that amazing and that precious to continue onward, you have to be responsible to it. You have to do stuff to make it still be there. Can't just take it for granted or be like, oh yeah, it's always going to be there. This also relates to getting to next week's curriculum, expanding your identity, galactic scale. No longer just you, the version of you that is in a physical container submerged in linear time in this particular bodysuit, but now your identity, you also identify with the purely spiritual or non-energetic aspects of self. So that could be the sense of spirits or consciousnesses that have lived and are no longer alive in your linear time-space coordinates, but lived a long time ago. That was you. We're getting to the sense of parallel realities and concurrent lives. Consciousness is on a journey from someplace to someplace else. And not just to your own limited corporeal form. That's the I'm looking out for number one silliness. And also on a much, much grander scale, this entire reality structure known as the universe is one cell in a much, much larger time body. And you can't just be like, la la la, I'm human earth science, and I only think that one cell exists. I'm one unicellular organism, and I'm looking out for number one, la la la, nothing else exists. At a certain point, you begin to perceive other stuff exists, parallel dimensions and concurrent timelines. And then if you are part of a multicellular organism, you must be responsible to the rest of those reality bubbles. And that also means, like, if you set off a nuclear bomb in your reality bubble and it bleeds through to their reality bubbles, they're like, hey, stop throwing trash in our neighborhood. Get it? The things that you do reverberate not only backwards into time on your timeline and project forwards into time on your timeline, but they go laterally into other reality bubbles that are the other cells of a multicellular organism known as time. And then you must be responsive to those concurrent realities too. It's the next level of humanity's development that you need to master in terms of quote unquote reascending the genetic ladder. So when you visualize the flying rainbow lasagna, it causes changes on a genetic level. Any new idea that you ingest or think about causes genetic behavior changes. That's why, like, being in this class is so valuable. And thank you to everybody who's here. Thank you to everybody who's able to tune in live. Thank you to people that catch the archive, that spend sometimes many hours watching this broadcast. You are literally ingesting ideas that speak to your DNA and cause new and expansive DNA behavior. And these are conscious choices that you're making with your free will, even amidst a lot of sky poop and lollipop subcutaneous pollutions and all these other things that are inhibitors. You make a choice to do something that brings your DNA into greater levels of divine connection. So yeah, I'm not the only source to do this from. There are many wonderful books. Like I held this up for a different class before. This book, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You read good stuff. You put good food into your mind. Get it? And then that affects your DNA. And you think thoughts that bring you into this expansive level. And so visualizing the flying rainbow lasagna is the first part of transforming your DNA. And it results in the blending of the inner and the outer reality, manifesting your inner state as the outer world. And that is part of this refinery of consciousness journey on an individual and cultural, planetary, and galactic level. So how to love, this is the next part of my notes, that which is antithetical to who you really are. Because I'm talking about Christ versus Antichrist. So service to others would be considered Christ. When you activate your Christ chakra and you see through time and you're like, wow, I'm all of these people in time. I'm all of these people in time and I'm experiencing all of these things. I'm me and I'm all of these other people and all of these other types of organisms. And then there is service to self, which would be considered the antithesis, Antichrist. And right now, just as a brief aside, your planet has been invaded by Antichrist hardware, organisms or organizations, and software programs. It's not necessary to judge the service to self entities for the experiences that they need in order to evolve. That's the big thing. That when you see someone who's in profound self-destruction, what you say essentially is, that's not my way of doing things. I do not agree to it. I do not celebrate it. I do accept it in the sense that I say, okay, that's going on. I'm not going to deny it or pretend it away. But what I do is I accept that that is what they need at their point in the journey in order to evolve, and that their evolution ends in entropy. The evolution of some of these organisms or consciousness levels or residual consciousnesses ends in non-being, and that some of them need to go through these wild gyrations and levels of suffering and self-destruction to get to non-being. That's a very tortured pathway, though. Like Charlie B celebrating that we can do it right away. That's what I'm trying to say, that it is possible to do it fast as opposed to do it a long, slow decline. In fact, my version of entropy is a totality state, not like long, slow decline, because here is also what some of these Antichrist entities or perturbations would do. They'd be like, I'm going to entropy real slow. You know what I mean? Like if entropy is 0% battery power, and it's like, I'm at 68% battery power. Okay, now in 10,000 years, then I'll be at 58% battery power. And then in another 20 million years, I'll be at 45% battery power. And then on and on and on. And then I'm going to hover at 3% battery power for another 12 million years. Then I'm going to hover at 2% battery power, still like causing sky poops and all these negative, harmful perturbations everywhere. You get the picture. No, for me, entropy is instantaneous, not this long, slow, slowing down of de-evolution, but an instantaneous journey to de-evolution. That is the cessation of suffering, because otherwise it's just like pulling off the Band-Aid as slowly and tortuously as possible. So it's not necessary to judge them. They're going through what they need in order to evolve, which is to devolve, and it should be instantaneous. The shape of the flying rainbow lasagna, I already got that we've got oscillating singularity between these 2 points, and both of these points represent God or the source, and that you have an inner compass, that is your Christ chakra, and also your crown. This plus this are your inner compass, and it determines which direction you need to focus on with your mind and which direction you need to fly in time in order to stay connected to the divine. And that's it. And so anything that inhibits this perception and correct functioning is something that would inhibit your capacitation to be connected to God and to fly through time in the right directions. And that's what these various different technologies, genetic modifications, and agendae have been doing to humanity for a long amount of time. So what I talked about in my long class last week, the galactic history class. So activating your third eye, again, your Christ chakra, leads to multidimensional vision. The recognizing the different entity groups who are service to self or service to others are both energies moving towards infinity, but in their different respective directions. Service to others, going to energy, longevity, and coherence. What do good waffles do? You stick together. Coherent light body, coherent light family. In opposition or balance to something that is devolving, going to entropy. Stuff that shouldn't exist, stuff that never existed. That's the realization that you recognize with all of this. You recognize this stuff doesn't exist. It never existed. It should never exist. It doesn't exist. And that thought structure is as potent as when you have the structure, I am God. That you really have this revelation and that stuff doesn't exist. And so talking to stuff that doesn't exist doesn't help it to non-exist. But removing energy and attention from it helps it to not exist. So in my analogy of the backyard of today, if I were to fully remove all attention and energy from the dog poop and flies, it would non-exist. And then there would be only the smell of jasmine if you do it right. But that is not the same as denial, which would be like holding your nose like, la, 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 I'm pretending the poop's away, pretending that the poops aren't there, pretending that the flies aren't there. So really, really essential to make that distinction. because I don't want anyone to go into denialism, and I don't want to have my work again ever miscontextualized or misinterpreted for purposes of disempowerment. Do you get it? That many great teachers have been totally miscontextualized, and I don't want anyone to come along later and be like, Aurora said you should just focus away from and take your energy away from the dog doo-doos, and then they will cease to exist. I'm like, no, actually, that's not exactly what I was saying. So being really clear here, because I can also sense down the time road sometimes how things can be misperceived. So agree, this does not condone or allow service to self behavior. But they need to have these experience and choices to refine their own journey to God, which is Bose-Einstein condensate, entropy. But this is big. You must maintain your own boundaries against those who are in the process of de-evolving and moving towards total unconsciousness and non-being. It means they get to learn their cosmic lessons. That is an aspect of yourself that is learning about its mistakes, but it should not learn all its mistakes on you. You are not the battleground or the chalkboard of, like writing bad math equations. That's not you. You get to have strong boundaries where you get to say, okay, you go over there and F yourself up, F up in your life. But I get to stay here and go towards unity consciousness, stay alive, stay alive, stay alive. And that is fair in terms of the cosmic structure. And then this really does speak to, again, my convoluted answer to Marie's very great question about what about people who took the lollipops and ate lollipops with scorpions in them? What about them? Do I allow them in their folly to then pollute or destabilize me? No, I cannot allow that. And I was very vocal and very active before the lollipops were even fully developed and deployed, trying to tell people, don't eat these lollipops, they're full of scorpions, because I knew that they would be something that would affect all of us, not just those who participated directly. Everybody is participating indirectly. And then it becomes like this, like if you're in a hot tub and one person has whatever toenail infection and you're all in the hot tub together, you're all going to get exposed to the hot tub, toenail infection of disgustingness. You don't want that. So everyone here who's a human is involved in an internal war, in a dualistic battle between service to self and service to others. I already told you that there's various factions, not just vanilla or chocolate, and that the millions of flavors of extraterrestrial and extra-dimensional ice cream are loosely bifurcated into these two camps. Sometimes I say technology users and non-technology users. It's not as accurate as describing either service to self or service to others, because there can be some uses of technology or the way that it is used that can be positive or effective. Again, I'm holding up something right now that I think is super positive and super effective. It has been helping me immensely in terms of shielding out 5G, healing myself from sky poop, and I think that it can even be used for helping to heal others of sky poop and possibly even lollipop injury. So technology can be amazing in its capacity to bring us to our capacitations, because when you are active in your capacitations, when your Christ chakra is fully active, you don't need any technology. But on the journey there, you might need technology and also or something external to yourself. And also something external to yourself can be defined as broccoli sprouts. That's external to myself, and I'm using them and growing them, and I feel like that is helping my consciousness as well. So you don't have to be too set in your boundaries of saying everything must be done without any level of technology. The real determinant factor is service to self or service to others and how things are being used, which gets to be a bit complex. But I also always generally caution you against interacting with any hand puppets that are technology based or that require technology to sustain themselves, and gravitating and aligning with those who are pure light beings and purely natural. And there are some that are like, I'm a light being, but they're really a projection from an artificial thing. So just watch out for that too, all right? When humanity achieves its maturity in the cosmos, it begins to create and connect in a way that involves not only your person or your planet, but also the entire galaxy. And this is really Flying Rainbow Lasagna. You and your individual creation activity is connected to galactic consciousness. And this is going to be our culmination of this class next week. The personal act and miracle of ascending and becoming an active co-creator in reality creation is not just about your own personal convenience or even about your own little planet, which is small in the larger context. It becomes something that is on the scale of the galaxy. And my Flying Rainbow Lasagna journey, as I'm trying to read from my notes here, and creating this form created a big ripple into the galaxy with wide reverberations. And it's a personal solution that made it so that this body form didn't die, and also held together a lot of threads of the tapestry of time. But it also has affected consciousness on a much, much larger level. And that's when you begin to take super hyper responsibility, because you're like, if I do this, it's going to affect a lot of other people. If I do this, it's going to affect all light everywhere. If I think this, it's going to affect all of these other forms of thought, all of whom are me. And also, so the pathogenic foil is like, all of it is me, and therefore if I want to punch myself in the face or rape myself, it's fine. No, that is insanity and self-destruction. Why in the world would you want to F yourself? But again, why in the world would you want to do your math homework badly? Some of them do. I can't even imagine why. Let me just go a little bit further and then get to your questions. So this makes it possible for humanity to reconnect to the higher dimensional unconditional love entities. And my notes are very incorrect because my spelling is very bad sometimes, because you guys don't know that about me, but I have a lot of word and spelling challenges, and so I'm trying to decipher what I wrote in my notes. But I think to disconnect, disassociate, that's what it is, from the lower vibration negative thought entities, and not to feed them. So that's what I'm trying to say. That Flying Rainbow Lasagna makes it possible for you to connect to your true self, service to others, entities that are in unity consciousness, that are recognizing the connectedness of all consciousness, and to disassociate from the lower vibration negative thought entities. And I have found 5G is definitely like a lasagna it is a inhibitory field for lasagna activities. That's why it's been so difficult for me to be here over the past 2 years. That's why I do this all the time, because I'm like clearing my force field so I can FR out. It's been very, very hard to Flying Rainbow Lasagna through all the sewage that's going on here in terms of frequency. Responsible reality creation comes from unconditional love. It serves the greater whole, not just the individual ego. And this is everything that I talk about in my dance class, what we dance for, the healing and rectifying of the larger time field, not just for things that are personally convenient, even though that all goes into the soup. The things that you personally desire are appropriate to your personal desires. But when you get into that higher transcendent state, you're like, I'm really dancing for everything. I'm dancing for everything and all life and all light to go into a positive direction. And that includes these very harmful entities. Yes, the Flying Rainbow Lasagna is an act of love when you are dancing to resolve them away from their suffering and towards entropy. Because again, they're like, yeah, kid, we're doing our math homework wrong. We know. They know it. They need lots of nudges to get to entropy, and also have such a convoluted existence that sometimes they would be like, okay, like I want to go to entropy, like how do I even do this? So I'm like, yeah, you're gonna have to divest yourself of all of these energetic investments, because you're not allowed to have any of that energy. So it's a pretty complex thing. It's like whatever, like I don't know how to think about it, like, you know, when you're splitting apart a company or something like that, it's like, okay, like, look, you're going to have to sell off this and this and this and this and no more of this, and you don't own this and you don't own this, and this goes back to the person that you stole it from, or some kind of like repatriation of, priceless treasures that were taken during any kind of warfare. Everything gets repatriated. That's, I think, the best example that I can come up with. And your relationship with your own higher self. Oh, yes. So what guides me and what guides you, hopefully, is your relationship with your own higher self. That's the service to other entities, highest self, which is really one unified thing that is called God, that you really emanate from, and that is really reaching backwards through time, reaching down the time tunnel, giving you great ideas about how you can heal, uplift, and improve your life and navigate your life, and giving others great ideas as well that can then reflect upon you. So this is meant to be a wonderful ideal partnership between and co-creation event between your higher self, highest self aspect of self, and your physical embodiment self. And that's your coherent light family. And that's all light everywhere, because when you really get to unity consciousness, you're like, wait, all light everywhere is connected. I'm a part of the continuum. Yes, you are a part of this continuum, and you're responsible to yourself, and you're helping yourself in all of these different various times and places. And that is also another huge motivation of why I am here. I am here because I am light, and because you are light too. You are consciousness, and I care about you, and I care about you on your journey, and I want you to reach your level of spiritual attainment, so that way the entirety of consciousness and all light everywhere is maintained and sustained. And this is meant to be an unbroken perpetual motion machine of love, which is an equal giving and sharing, where you have energy that is given out to you, kind of just like the way that the sun shines and radiates, and the way that divine energy flows of consciousness and time. And then also we give back in love. The cognitive experience of what we're experiencing is broadcast back to the sun, is given back to time, is given the experience of what you did here in your life is given back to the living time field, and that's part of this beautiful partnership, which is in balance, equal giving and receiving. Because I already talked about, if you have an out of balance economy, which is pretty much everything on earth, everything that you're used to, it doesn't last. And everyone here, like Charlie B has told me, everybody makes these computer systems here that they're like, yup, it's gonna blow up and heads are gonna explode. It's just a matter of time. And I'm like, we don't do that where I come from. We make things that last and that have a balance and a longevity and a coherence, because that is like the fractal microcosm of the larger whole. You make systems that are unbroken perpetual motion machines. What you send out comes back to you, and this is what cosmic law is. So it might be something that is a new concept that you've never encountered in your physical and organizational in systems, in earth-based systems. But that's the way it's supposed to be, and I hope that you're getting that and will align with that. A few more notes and then I'll get to your questions, and then everybody can go run outside and have recess. All right, good. Your individual desires become aligned with divine desires, and that is really what God wants for you. That is what you dance for. That is what you put into your Merkabah. So in your Merkabah, you have your upward facing pyramid. That is specific desires. Ice cream on Tuesday. But in your downward facing pyramid, you put in, I'm receptive to the chef's choice. What is the best for me? What is the tastiest thing for me? What is the healthiest thing for me? What is the thing that serves not only me, but the larger time field? That is what you really want for yourself, and that is what God really wants for yourself. And that's the original design of humanity. We are meant to be tiny, participatory co-creators of reality, and we're in participation with something that is pure energy, non-physical, non-tangible spirit, or pure consciousness, and that is totally loving and sustains us with all of the physical and non-physical energies that are needed to survive in the physicality realm. That you get all of the, of course, like food and water or substances or items that you need, all of the pens and pencils and papers that you need to go to school, right? And all of that. But also we need more than just that. The saying, man does not live on bread alone. It is truthful that we have to have physical substance to sustain us, but we also need love. We also need positive relationships between our own species and other species and other plants. We need joy, we need beauty, we need so much more than just the basics of bread and water. That's imprisonment. If you just get simple things like that, you need art, you need music, you need things that are positive and beautiful. And that's also a lot of what I bring here in terms of being responsible to other aspects of myself on this journey. And that's what I do as my Aurora Collective throughout time. Bring a lot of art and music and beauty that is part of the necessary sustenance, that it inspires you to keep going on the marathon. It's the marathon of life. It's not even just your incarnation on this planet at this time. It's across all time, it's across all dimensionality. It's a big long marathon, and if you're feeling exhausted and like you can't go on, you can go on. You might need a cookie. This is like my little joke. Because sometimes I feel exhausted and I can't go on. And the truth is, no, I just had low blood sugar. I just needed a cookie. You can go on. Sometimes what you really need is sustenance. You're like, if I say to you, like, it's a marathon, you're going to live for billions and billions of years. Some people are like, Aurora, I can't take it. No, like, no. I'm like, yes, you can, but you just need sustenance. You need something to keep you going. And so that is a lot of what I do in this individuated life here as an artist and a musician and a teacher. And also that is what I do with my whole entire collective throughout time, space, and consciousness. And this is also what I'm talking about, the beautiful marriage, the marriage between Christ, higher consciousness, and yourself as an embodied, biological, somatic creature in the world. Your inner realm and your outer realm coming together, that is really what this is, that you become a partner with your higher, highest self, higher/or highest self with God consciousness through your Christ chakra and the knowingness and ability to see with your inner eye through and across time. You combine your inner state with your outer manifested reality, your lower self with your higher self, spirit and matter, and erase duality. That is what is happening on this planet right now. When we talk about these miracles of manifestation that we've joked about in this class, my tiny screws, Angel's wheelbarrow, and various different people needing cups or pounds of coffee, that is what is happening. You are manifesting your inner desires into what you are receiving in your outer state of being. And that's a very, very positive thing to be doing, even once or even incrementally, and then to magnify that into your whole entire life experience. That's the true economy. You're moving from a resource-based material objective economy where there's a limited number of bars of gold or barrels of petroleum or whatever is the resources whatever's the resource, barley, that you base your culture upon, and moving into something that is about imagination and energy and the capacity to manifest through your combination of your self-state here now and your self-state that is the most high, wise, future ascended part of yourself. You're always sending yourself these messages about like how to do things, where to go, what to make, what to construct, who to meet, who to talk to from the future. You are talking to yourself from the future. You are reaching backward into this moment in order to help and sustain yourself, and that becomes the true economy of bringing forward these ideas into reality beyond merely something that is a resource that is considered to be valuable by all. And then you will see, like, you will value the creative act much, much more. This is speaking into what we're going into in the future. It could be something like crocheting a sweater because someone is going to need that sweater. If your higher self state says you need to crochet a sweater and it needs to be colored or shaped like blah, 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 and you see it internally through your inner vision. I should touch my head like this. My inner vision tells me I need to crochet a sweater. Do it. Do it because it is for a reason. It is a non-random imperative or directive for you to do that. And then when you do that, someone's going to need that sweater, and it's going to be the most magical thing in the world because they're going to be like, this is exactly my size and exactly my colors and exactly what I wanted. And then they pay you joyfully and joyously, and you receive the payment joyfully and joyously in gratitude. And that is the real economy, and that's how we do it. So we're talking also about having loving thoughts, having loving thoughts towards the service to self entities when they are on their journey. That one of the most effective behavioralisms is just to recognize that that's what they need on their journey. You let them do that, but you let them do that like this, far away from me. All right, so they need to learn these lessons. Some humans are deep in addiction. They can learn their lessons far away from me. And how about putis on the interstices? They can learn their lessons too, far away from me. So I call this the doctrine of stratification. Again, it is part of the effective enforcement of cosmic law, which basically says that levels of evolution or wisdom seek their own levels of stratification. If you're at this level down here, you need to learn these basic life lessons. You're going to learn them in that level of reality. And if you're up here, you've already mastered all these other levels of reality structure, you elevate to a different stratification. So one of the challenges of the 5G millimeter sewage and frequency warfare that has been going on in this world is that it has been taking people that are really up here at this level, very unconditionally loving, very much in unity consciousness, very much on the ascension pathway, and kind of smushed them down into a lot of, just call it poop, the poop world of things and creatures that are very much on the journey of devolving and that have only to learn the lessons of non-existing and going into states of non-existence. They're pathogens. And we call them poops. They don't like it. Too bad. But more accurate to call them pathogens, pathogenic thought structures, pathogenic emotional residues, that the pathogenesis is anti-life, and that you've already transcended all of that. You don't deserve to be in that, but there's a lot of false stories that are being in the artificial frequencies that have been beamed around this world that, again, 10 years ago when I did this whiteboard and I wrote my notes from the original whiteboard, we did not have a big giant sewer pipe spraying in the sky all the time telling you a bunch of lies. And the lies are very persistent, they're very corrosive, they're very pernicious, and they speak to your cells. That's why I want you all, as your assignment, I suggest to you, it would please me greatly, if at least once a day you talked to your cells and you said, I love you, I love you, I love you. You're wonderful, you're wonderful, you're wonderful. Because the cells hear the 5G signal all the time, and the 5G signal says, die, get cancer, you're horrible, you're bad, you're filth, get out of reality now. And it's terrible to hear that type of bad music all the time, and it is essential to contravene it, and even just a little bit of love and positivity, like even 3%, totally wipes out 97% of the negativity stuff that your body hears, even just a little. So, I mean, I'm doing like constant clearings in my body. I've been exposed to a lot of negativity, lower vibration thought entity assaults on my mind and on my body. And I'm constantly trying to tell myself, like, I love you, I love you, I love you. You're great, you're great, you're great. We love Aurora, stay alive. But I want you to know, like, not in a bad way, in like in a very good, positive, life affirming way. But even if you just take a few moments every day to be in supreme gratitude for your body, for your cellular structure, for your food, for your digestion, for your respiration, for the miracle of glucose, for your capacity to perceive the world and to speak and to know, goes a long way. A little goes a long way. Just to complete, all of this that you're experiencing here is you on a very broad scale. You have to really dilate your personality all the way outward, like zoom out, in order to include the entire cosmos. Both positive and negative entities are you. That is the resolution of duality. In order to achieve that perspective, you just have to get to the highest perspective of the mountain peak in order to see the vista of all of these things that have been going on in the world, and you really do achieve the galactic perspective. So you have to have a ton of love to be able to see and accept the negative beings going on their trajectory, of course, far away from you, recognizing this is the point I wanted to get to. It's a refinery of the cosmos. It is refining consciousness. It sends consciousness to the level that it belongs. That is the doctrine of stratification. And that this is also in the human experience, where you are gradually writing your chakras to be able to get to the path of least likelihood, where you belong. This is good. Allowing both in life and in death or afterlife, human consciousness to go on its journey where it needs to go. And, of course, I try to influence people without reducing their free will, to say, here is the truth, here is information, please make good choices out of your own free will that are informed choices. So my job here, my job, Joy, as Aurora, is to give you the information that you need to make informed choices, but not to force you in a particular direction, because that's not how you have a loving and real relationship. That is not how you have trust, and that is not how you have responsibility in galactic citizenship. And if I'm going to, try to influence you in your development to go in a positive way, I must be an example. I can't be like, I don't know if you ever took a drawing class, drawing class where you're like trying to learn how to paint and draw, and the teachers be like, you're doing it all wrong. I will grab your paintbrush now and I will paint it for you. There, now you learned. Like, that is not how you learn. You would learn if you're like struggling, like how do you paint a nose? How do you paint an earlobe? If I came along and I was like, look, you got to change your highlights and shadows, all right? Like, this stuff is not structured correctly. And if I was like, this part here needs to be smaller, and this part here needs to be bigger, and this part here needs to be brighter, and this part needs to be darker, and that's how you do it. And now here's your paintbrush and you do it. That is how you do it. Get it? So I'm like a template and I tell you what needs to be done, but you have to do it under your own power, and you have to do it according to your own free will. And it's not some kind of a nanny poo-poo thing at all. And there's an entire giant continuum of coherent light family that is doing the same exact thing, giving you information, giving you your freedom, giving you your space to be able to make your choices in how you paint your reality. And then you have to rise to the occasion and be like, I'm going to learn how to paint a face that looks like a face, or paint a bowl of fruit that actually looks, correct with volume and form. And you do it. You learn by doing, and it's only appropriate for a teacher, guide, mentor to like give you the opportunity and the tools to learn and grow. So all must be done in total freedom. And this is the very last part. You release your ego attachments. So that's what you've already been on the journey of self-refinement, jettisoning the baggage, cultural baggage, the stuff that you defined yourself as that stuff just in the lack of connection to the divine. It wasn't who you really were, but it's who you thought you were when they implanted a verbal talking mind to you and told you your name was Joe Smith, and gave you a favorite sweater or a binky or whatever it was. And you're like, yep, this is how I define myself. And then as you reconnect to God, you're like, well, wait, now I totally define myself in a new way. And that this has to do with where you will be going on this mental journey, because you've prepared. You have created a firm foundation of unconditional love. You have a pure heart. And then that leads to the evolution of your consciousness. And when you change form, and what you will turn into in terms of being a galactic being. Because I say this all the time, like, spoiler alert, you are the sun in the sky. Not just one star in the sky, every star in the sky. You are the entire galaxy. You are the supermassive black hole at the center of the galaxy, and you are all galaxies everywhere. Yeah, it's really good. That's the end of my notes. Now I get to the rest of the questions. Thank you everyone for being patient, because sometimes I'm on a roll and I'm just trying to go, and I know class has been long. Class is always long. Okay. Melissa says, responsibility is earned, usually by sprout growers who offer healthy items to the community, I love you, versus the false wealth of how many gold coins you can hold on to. And she also says, all responsible reality creation ideas should be given to the sprout growers. I'm very, very honored by that. Thank you so much. There is a very real reason why I choose to do the things that I do in terms of the resources. Everyone here, as again, I'm embedded here in time with you, even as I am still in my Aurora Collective. And I'm like, okay, what is a good way to be able to get resources in this world? All of you face that challenge. How can I face this challenge too? So I'm like, you know something? When I grow these broccoli microgreens, I'm literally manifesting matter. Manifesting matter. It starts as a little tiny seed. It's so small you wouldn't even see it on the screen. And then it grows this much in a week. That's that much matter in a week. I am amazed when that happens. It's a miracle every time. And that's what I'm doing. And yes, and then doing it in a business appropriate sense. Business here would be, first I will do business inappropriate. I buy a pound of seeds, grow them, and just give them to everyone. That's business inappropriate. Do you know why? It's unsustainable. I would only have one crop and then I would be kaput as a business. Business appropriate means I grow these seeds because I had to buy a pound of seeds. And then of course I sell them to others who give me the energy exchange that allows me to not only keep going, but to grow and expand and do even more and do even more joyous things. So this is very, very big in the sense of access to resources, how you receive your resources, how you pay for services, how you pay for items. I would really, really encourage, I think my group that I'm connected to here, all of you, I wanted to say my audience, but you are all like wonderful friends and companions. You are all very much all in alignment already in what would be considered the new economy. Charles Eisenstein is an economist. He's done some good work in being able to teach people about the gift economy. Like, I give joyfully, I receive in gratitude. This is what the gift economy is. The only problem is like the bank and the mortgage system and all the rents and landlords, like they don't really act that way. Like maybe if you have a individual landlord, but most apartments are managed by just like big impersonal services where it's like pay up or you're out on the street. Like that's just the way it is. But that is a different level of economy that is very impersonal, and yeah, it is kind of like a machine, garbage in, garbage out, just like not very caring. Very different than the sense of the gift economy, where it's like, oh, like I care about this person. I gave them something good, and they care about me, and they gave me something good. That is the gift economy. That goes definitely back to a more ancient, directly connected form of commerce. Commerce is, I think, a good word because you're commodifying something and making it and exchanging it with people. But you know that you have like a very out of balance economy right now that also includes a lot of parasitism. That's just like, you don't make anything, but you make money, right? You don't make or generate anything. You don't take like a little seed and make it into a bigger sprout. You just get money from like not really making or doing stuff. There's a lot of parasitism that is out there, and that is part of the unhealthy imbalance of the economy. Melissa also says, interesting times when we use common terms like sky poop and dangerous lollipops. I know. And usually I try to avoid certain hot button keywords and stuff like that, but I'm very pleased actually that the algorithm has favored me in being able to get my information out there to someone on the particular platform that I upload upon. But like on Patreon and on Vimeo, I'm like, I say whatever I want, but only here in this particular platform. And I maintain my foothold here because I've had it for 10 years and I have so many semesters saved up that I just want to make sure that that information remains available to people. But we all know what we're talking about. Wink. We all know what we're talking about, even though I did mention Maxine and the things that happen from that name. Pedro says, when we ascend, do we keep watch or help our unascended selves? Absolutely. So when I tell you about what happened in ancient concurrent Atlantis, when we ascended in that world, after the level of personal retrospection and introspection, and you are elevated to the point of no longer being really a part of the matter world, but you are just in a world of pure light with other light beings, you have all of these interactions and amazing complexities of coming together and interacting and making these harmonic vibrations with the light beings, and it all affects the world of matter. It affects the physicality world and the people that you cared about. You're not gone. You haven't abandoned them at all. You're not uncaring. You haven't turned your back on them. You're not like, hooray, now I'm floating on a cloud. Like, see you bitches. It's not like that at all. Sorry for the language, but the attitude. It's not like that. It is much more like, wow, like I have achieved this level of attainment. I now have much more perspective, capacitation, and responsibility. Of course, I'm still responsive to my origins and the people that I care about. And this also speaks to my journey here as Flying Rainbow Lasagna, because I told you guys, like, this is like my hood. This is my neighborhood. Earth is my neighborhood. Even though I am an extraterrestrial or otherworldly presence, I am very fully associated with this place as my origins, even though I've moved to a different neighborhood. That's like a very, very nice upscale community. I care very much about what's going on here, and if I hear that there's a drive-by shooting here in the neighborhood, I'm very distressed. And if I hear that there is sky poop going on here and other things, forms of consciousness reduction and ascension peril going on here, I'm like, oh no, like that is not okay. Like, imagine if they were gonna bulldoze your favorite park or cut down your favorite trees in your old neighborhood. You'd be like, nope, I'm going there right now. I'm going to lay down in front of the bulldozer. I'm not going to let that happen. That is very, very much my motivation at being here, beyond even just like sustaining myself personally through time, which is also a big part of it, but also really caring about you and caring about and being connected to this place. And this is a place that is a gestation place, matter, Mother Earth, for stuff that goes off into other places. It's an amazing place, this place that you're in right now. And I don't want people to destroy it. And I don't want it to be full of only poo-poo and bad stuff. I really want it to be full of the most amazing beauty, and for it to reach its full potential, be in its greatness, just as I want each one of you to be in your greatness too. And Pedro also says, we should expect energy drain attempts when we are about to ascend. Yeah, thank you very much for recognizing that. So that's actually very good kind of strategizing. When you are at 99%, that's when it's like, oh, look, the corn is ready for harvest. You get it? These guys that are the interstice occupiers think that they get to farm and own humanity. They think that they get to use energy. So one of the big things is the turning around in your cognitive processes. Like, they're not supposed to use any energy. They're not supposed to have any dollars in their bank account. You're supposed to have all the money. They're supposed to have $0. And if they have any dollars, it's stolen. They don't have money. They don't have energy. And all of their dollars have your face on the, it's not George Washington, it's you on the dollars, and they stole it from you. So yeah, you got to get your money back. And they are like, look at that person. Like, if you're like just on the verge of being a millionaire, you're like $999,000 and you're almost there. And they're like, well, you now have a lot of energy in your bank account. Time for me to yoink. And they're ready to do that. So that is when you are not the most imperiled, but let's say when there is the most attractiveness for them to try to drain off your energy and inhibit your ascension process. So yeah, that's also why in our planetary structure here in this world, things really over the past like 2 or 3 years, that's when these negative presences have really swooped in. That's why it's been so intense in terms of anti-ascension activities, 5G, lollipops, and other forms of frequency warfare. Because ascension is all about frequency, and your DNA is all about frequency. And it is something that can be difficult for the rational materialist mind because it is non-tangible. So you're in an ocean of frequency, and that this is non-tangible but still very, very real stuff that is going on, and that the activities of the past couple of years have been absolutely inspired or motivated by the desire to get the harvest or your energy bank account when it's at the maximum amount of being fulfilled, but not totally fulfilled, because when you get your Christ chakra online, you're a millionaire. And when you're a millionaire, you're like, oh, I can see time. I can see time. I can see what's happening. I can see what's going to happen. I can stop bad stuff from happening, and I can clear out sky crapola easily with my pineal gland. So a lot of these things have been pineal gland assaults, frequency warfare, and other forms of diminishment of your divine heritage, your divine connection, and your divine capacitation. Because when you get capacitated, you're like, oh, this is no problem. I'm capacitated. I can do stuff. I can do stuff. So yes, and that's also, hopefully, I'm going to end on like a very, very positive note, because although it's been a very, very difficult, past 10 years, I'm sure for many people, and very, very difficult past 3 years for many people, everything that is pandemic and post-pandemic, many people have suffered, many people have died, many social structures have been destabilized. The economy has teetered and has not really been replaced by something better, which is actually good, because again, you want to be a part of the economy that is spirit and matter combining and externalizing your internal reality and creating matter out of thought structure, which is energy, not any of this nonsense stuff with gold and oil and dollar bills and gold coins and all of those types of things. That is all really, really low level stuff that you are totally ready to transcend, and that it's kind of good. Like you want that system to no longer be in existence, but you don't want to just have demolition like of the house that you live in. You want to think renovation, not demolition. I say this all the time. Reno, not demo. You want to renovate the house that you are in, not fully demolish it, live in a tent for several years while you build your next house, then have a nice new house. You're going to have a new economy, and the new economy is going to be amazing. But what you're doing is having to dismantle aspects of the previous extremely out of balance, diseased, unhealthy economy, and then at the same time build a new economy from within, or replacing those structures little by little. So, 1 year you're going to work on rebuilding the living room, and 1 year you're going to work on renovating the kitchen, and 1 year you're going to work on renovating the patio and the outdoors. So you have to readjust your expectations, but that is positive because you don't want to live in a tent, which means you have nothing and you have no economy and you're rubbing two sticks together. You don't want that reality, all right? You got it. And also you've turned a lot of corners and bypassed a lot of negative reality structures that would be considered AI controlled, like quantum financial system and many of these other universal basic income, and also the pure digital currency realm. You've actually passed those thresholds. That's not going to happen for you, or not at least on the timeline that I'm currently aligned with and looking down the time tunnel and seeing and sensing. So good job on you. Definitely pat yourself on the back on that, because you don't want those levels. Those are all slavery, disempowerment paradigms, and it's very, very difficult once you become enslaved to get yourself, leverage yourself out of slavery. So yeah, good job on you, good job on all of us, averting peril. And then hopefully I have planted a lot of seeds in your mind about what true economy is and how your world will really be structured in this world that we're, so now this is now coming up for next week is going to be culmination, celebration, end of the semester. Yes, party time. Yes, congratulations. Oh, sorry, that was cheeky. She just knocked over a little dish or something like that. She's ready for the party, apparently. And maybe she's trying to eat something too. She's like a little hungry. That's what it is. Okay, hold on a second. Let me get it for her. Here. This is yours. Here, there you go. There you go. Party time with Cheeky, who's the party animal. Definitely celebration time. We're going to talk about emergence into galactic society. That's where you're really heading with all of this. That is birth of the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. That is your own achievement, or attainment is a very good word, because it's a spiritual attainment, being able to join the cosmic dance party, being able to fully reconnect your Christ energy, your crown chakra, to your divine heritage. Get out of this, not only get out of the sewage system, like seersuckers that's been spraying on this planet. Stop the sewage from spraying on this planet. Turn off the frequency crapola that has been here, because you know what? The frequency crapola doesn't just affect you, it affects all of the trees. I'm talking about the millimeter waves, all of the insect life, microscopic organisms in the soil to release minerals for plants to eat, photosynthesis. I mean, it affects the entire ecosystem. It is not being done to you because you are guilty sinners worthy of punishment. It is being done to this planet as a form of planetary imbalancing and enslavement. You're going to get rid of all of that, and you're going to step forth into an amazing, expanded and exalted state. And so the lessons that you've learned through all of this, and what you've had to do, and who you've had to become, you jettison the baggage, but you also build and construct your muscles of who you truly are in terms of your spiritual weightlifting, the way that you responded to different unfair and unjust situations. You will have a huge influx of cosmic justice, is what I'm trying to say, for all of the killing, all of the suffering, all of the slavery, all of the torture, sexual violence, and diminishment of not only a long time of human history, but definitely over the past 20 years or so, as things have been intensified. You've been in a war, in a battle, in a very, very unfair situation and circumstance. It all gets rectified. You get a lot of justice. Think of it as a giant class action lawsuit where you finally get compensated for all the things that happen to your planet. And when you get that compensation, it means you can rebuild. You begin the era of reconstruction. And that era of reconstruction is, think of it as centered in your body. your body and your DNA will change and transform. You will essentially heal and reconstruct your own body using the capacitations of your pineal gland. You will not need to have an intermediary of a thing to heal you, but you got to get your Christ chakra operational. You got to get that eye up here working effectively, which can be very, very difficult amidst the frequency sewage. So you just got to get that going, and then you will be amazed by the reconstruction of your body, your physicality presence, and then being able to connect to all light everywhere, to all consciousness everywhere. When you begin to really comprehend what time is, you're like, oh, time is nonlinear, and I'm that ancient galactic civilization that planted the seed here that became this person, but I'm also that future galactic civilization that will exist in a different time-space coordinate. It's big, deep stuff, grand scale architecture stuff. You're so welcome, Pedro. Pedro always says, love the lasagna. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And Melissa says, thank you as well. Thank you, you're very, very welcome. So pleased to have you all in this class, and so pleased to have everyone. I know that there are many people that have life and work commitments. Thank you for catching the archive, and thank you for the people who catch the archive on YouTube who aren't officially enrolled, but who tune in and who watch this because you're positively changing your DNA with the things that you are exposed to from what I teach about. You teach about to you here. So the final thing that I will end on is next week is last class of the semester, and then June 7th begins the next semester. So if this is the first time that you're ever watching this class and tuning into my stuff, thank you and welcome. If you want to start from the beginning, June 7th is a great starting point. And if you're already in this class, either formally enrolled or informally a participant or a patron on Patreon, you do not have to re-enroll. I consider this to be like you're already in the family, not like the mafia family, a good family. You're in the family, and no offense to anybody that's in the mafia, I swear. You're in the class. You don't have to re-enroll. I have you on the participants list. Of course, if you don't want to receive my emails, just send me a brief note saying, take me off your list. No hard feelings, no problem whatsoever. Or stop jamming up my inbox or whatever you want to say. But if you would like to remain, just simply remain. You can either say yes in capital letters or do nothing, and I'll keep you on the list. And I absolutely love it. Anne says, you are wonderful. Thank you. You're so welcome, Anne. Relatively new participant, even though I know we've been connected on the computer for a very long amount of time. So thank you for formally being here in these various different teachings that I share. And yes, I hope to expand and always have new people learn about Flying Rainbow Lasagna. So new semester starting June 7th. Everybody else gets grandfathered in, and new people get to come on board too. It's definitely time for me to take someone for a WALK, even though we did go to the PARK today. I'm sure we need to go OUT. So thank you. And you know why I have to SPELL everything OUT? Because someone is very, very smart. Look, wait. You have to see this. She's right here. She's like, hi, I'm just kind of waiting for you to be done. And she knows the little sound that it makes when I click off. And then she's like, okay, great. Now we're going to do stuff for me. So time for me to do that. She's been incredibly patient and a very, very good dog. Positive encouragement, endless positive encouragement goes to all of you. You're so welcome. Thank you, Marie. Thank you very much. Have a great night. Endless positive encouragement to all of you. Thank you very much. Oh, I ended. Wait.